This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to a podcast of Rare Antiquities, Special Edition, the one where we talk seriously about mental illness, class struggle, economic disparity, and good old-fashioned clown hijinks. I am your host, Geoff.
Never rub another man's rhubarb. This is Harry.
Yeah, no, do not rub that rhubarb. At least not the wrong way. Yeah, so we're deviating from the usual script, and we're talking about the Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix contemporary take on Joker. Yeah, we're back, and we're pumping these episodes out, man. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm glad we're back in the saddle here on the show, recording some shit that will hopefully see the light of day. And This one should be a dandy.
It ought to be a dandy. I think we win the prize by being the 1 millionth podcast on the internet to talk about this movie. So we're
and you get a Joker. And you get a Joker.
You get a Joker.
You get a Joker.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to, as we do sometimes with these more contemporary films, we'll deviate a little bit because obviously it's not an antiquity film. But as we usually do, we'll kind of reach back and talk about how we felt about the movie when it came out, if we saw it when we were younger. But in this case here, obviously we both seen it as it came out. But let's talk about the lead up to this film. So I want to ask you, Harry, what you remember about the lead up to Joker, going all the way back to when it was announced, maybe watching the first couple trailers, and then in the weeks that actually preceded the film's release. What are your recollections?
I have a vague memory of it being announced. I vaguely remember that, but I was in such a hellhole with work that I didn't have a lot of time dipping into that stuff. It was during the movie's pre-production or even during its production. I remember the trailer specifically, and that's when it caught my interest. That first trailer, I was stoked when I saw that. I said, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a different take on the Joker's origin, and it looked fresh and it looked really good. And I'm going to make a bold statement here, and I might be one of the few people on the face of the planet that thinks Heath Ledger's Joker's a tad overrated, even though it's still a very good performance. And I appreciate the way the Joker was written is that he had these different stories about his origin. I liked that, and that he was a bit of an agent of chaos. So I liked that kind of thematic element to him in the movie. But his performance, it's a good performance. It didn't blow me away like it did the rest of the world. But when I saw the glimpse of what Joaquin Phoenix is bringing, one is just Joaquin Phoenix, who's the best actor working today, outside of Nicolas Cage, of course.
Wow, that goes without saying.
But
he should have played the Joker.
Yes.
Shit.
That would be the only other guy who could probably, who I would drop anything to watch him play the Joker.
He wouldn't even know he was in a movie if you put him as the Joker.
No.
You could probably just film him walking around and cut it, and they'd be like, oh man, what a great Joker. Nicolas Cage would be like, who?
Love that Joker.
Love that Joker.
So, yeah. So when I saw that first trailer, I was like blown away. It was hook, line, and sinker for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think when I heard about them tossing around this idea of a solo Joker movie, I was skeptical. And this is, I think, around the time when the so-called DC universe was just crumbling like dry plaster. Every single idea that they had just was falling apart around them. So I was skeptical, but at the same time, I was like, well, nothing else is working for these assholes, so I may as well try something different. I heard about the casting of Joaquin Phoenix, and like you say, he is definitely one of the finest working actors today. So that gives you some hope. But same as you, when I saw that first trailer, I was on board. That first trailer was so fucking good, and I was pumped to see it ever since that first trailer came out.
And I think this was like, if you were watching a lot of whether social media or entertainment media, this was on pretty much everyone's radar as the most anticipated movie of 2019.
Yeah.
Easily. I think so.
I mean, other than maybe Avengers Endgame, but that came out months and months ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Maybe I should take that back. I think Endgame had the bigger anticipation, but I think outside of Endgame, this was the one.
Yeah, I can't think of another movie, even including Endgame, that has dominated social media, that has dominated the press, that has dominated pop culture conversation. Even, I mean, Endgame is going to be the higher grossing movie, obviously, but it didn't seem to occupy the zeitgeist that Joker has occupied for many months now. It's
essentially Occupy Gotham.
huge.
So
yeah, it is Occupy Gotham. Yeah.
So
It's big. I mean, I'll disagree on the Heath Ledger stuff. I thought that was pretty great, but we don't need to litigate.
no, it's
that.
good. I want to go on the record.
Yeah.
It's
No,
amazing. I just found it a tad overrated.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it doesn't. You're not saying it sucked. I just watched that actually a couple weeks ago before I saw Joker. Just sort of coincidentally, I just felt like it, and we can talk about it. Actually, yeah, I thought it was pretty good. But anyway, we can.
It's a good movie, but again, movie's overrated with too. But anyways, Batman Begins is the better Batman.
I had this conversation with somebody else before too, and I it's hard for me because I like all three of those movies, and like I go back and forth between which one I like the most. And which one I like the most is independent of which one I think is the best, but those are moving targets. But hey, that's fine.
That's subjective, yes.
Exactly. This is about the Clown Prince himself. So
I just want to ask you one other thing before the lead up. So obviously, I don't think we have talked about the DCU on the podcast since the good old Batman versus Superman podcast throwdown we had that one time. So quick hot take from you on the state of affairs there. And when this was announced, what do you think that meant, if it meant anything at all? So they were going in this direction with Joker. So
you're asking like, what did I think this release meant to the overall state of the DC?
Yeah, like it's a complete standalone. It has nothing to do with the DCEU. This is obvious, and wasn't really not my question. But the fact that Warner's really wanted to, especially after, say, Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad and Leto's Joker, seeing how that kind of backlash played out, then they greenlit this. What do you think that means for the DCEU? Very quick thing. It's just because I don't want that to come up when we're analyzing this movie, really. I thought I'd just get that out of the way here.
It definitely shows that they do not have faith in their previous direction. And I don't think that's a surprise because they shouldn't have faith in their previous direction. It turned out to be a commercial failure. Other than that, I think it just shows that they don't really have a plan. They don't really know what they want to do with it. But to their credit, that they don't have a plan, that they're just like, hey, we've got some cool characters. Let's make some movies with these cool characters. And that seems to be the direction they're going now. And I'm okay with that. Then that means that the overarching universe with all of these characters is effectively dead, at least if you look at it from the perspective of the Marvel universe, right? We wanted to do that, but we can't. So we're not going to try. We're just going to do this other shit and whatever happens. And
I won't elaborate further. I just say I agree. And actually, if they proceed in this direction with different kinds of interpretations and spin-offs or standalones, focusing on any particular DC character, I think that would be fantastic. Whether it's a lighthearted affair, a serious affair, I think that might be the better route they take here.
Yeah, and I think I'm mostly fine with it, sort of, kinda. But again, that's a different show. Okay, we'll run into the film. Anything else you want to lay down as your thoughts before we dive into the synopsis here?
No, let's get her going.
All right, let's get this circus started. It's the nitty-gritty Gotham City of 1981. Poverty and crime are rampant. Rich people do not give a fuck. Crazy people are left to roam the streets. Basically, it's Ronald Reagan's wet dream. Under the grime and trash of rampant capitalism crawls social cast-off Arthur Fleck and the mom from 6 Feet Under. Artie is the good son, watches late-night talk shows with his mom, microwaves her dinner, scrubs her down in the bath. Totally normal, good son stuff. But Flecky's job as a street clown gets him fucked up hard by a bunch of shitty teenagers, and his road to supervillainy begins. Artie Fleck can't help but laugh at, everything because of brain reasons or something. And as such, he's not such a hit at parties. Also, because reasons, the Flexter wants to become a stand-up comedian. So he does that and sucks at it because he's a fucking sociopath who is called Joker. So he decides to invite his pretty neighbor to his first open mic. And she goes along and loves his act, which includes him telling bad non-jokes, laughing uncontrollably because brain injury, and acting like a 12-year-old giving a 6th grade book report. Seriously, it does not go well. Thankfully, something mental illness, and he is totally oblivious to how much he sucks. His therapist doesn't understand him, his coworkers make fun of him, and he just can't stop laughing. What a jokester, or clown guy, something. Clown Prince of Grime, maybe. I feel like he should have a name. Anyway, Arthur buys a gun from a colleague to avoid getting his ass whooped by some teenagers again. I guess so he can shoot kids who harass him. And he packs that heat during a clown job at the children's hospital. And it pops out while he's doing his shitty clown act. which gets him fired. At least he didn't rig that hospital with C4 during a megalomaniacal plot to hold the city hostage in his battle for Gotham's soul against a fascist billionaire in an armored bat costume. But while on the subway, in full clown regalia, he pulls that piece on some rich Wall Street bros who just can't take fuck off for an answer. And he shoots the fuck out of them. They totally deserve it, though. But not only does he not feel bad about it, he likes it. He feels powerful, important. And naturally, from this one little incident, the oppressed everywhere take on the persona of this crazy clown. It's become the Occupy Wall Street of 1981 Gotham City. And Aflex, he digs it, baby. But Mommy Jokes is not doing so well, claiming that the great scion of Gotham, Thomas Wayne, is going to sweep in and deliver them from poverty, which he doesn't do, so she has a stroke. She thinks that Big Tom is her baby daddy, so the artster goes to confront him and is seriously massive. Instead, he meets some broody rich kid. I'm not sure he's important. And his asshole butler. And then Thomas rolls out and tells him, "Sorry, kid, your mom's a psycho, didn't you know? Mom's medical file at Arkham Hospital doesn't help. Seems he was adopted and abused by mom's boyfriend as a kid. And to top it off, seems his shitty comedy act went viral somehow in 1981. I don't know. And his late-night idol, Travis Popkin or Robert Bickle or whatever, has made him into a fucking joke on TV. Well, fuck that shit. Affleck decides to show the world what he's all about and puts on some clown makeup, goes on TV, and shoots Robert De Niro in the face. Also, a bunch of people in clown masks thinks that's awesome. This jackal, this wild card, I don't remember his name. He goes to a mental institute, murders some more people in hilarious fashion, and we never hear from him ever again. The end. So there we go. That's the movie, man. I might have skipped over a couple parts. I usually like to watch the movie a couple times, but I only had a chance to see this once before getting in on that. But there we go. So, damn, I don't know. Opening thoughts, I guess. We'll turn it over to you.
Well, yeah, even on paper, when you say it, even with a bit of sarcasm and joke behind it, it's some serious discussion topics there. I mean, there's a lot to dive into. This is a different movie than one would expect, even though you got a sense of it from the trailers and the marketing. But I'm fascinated because it reads right off the paper that this is going to be a character study and a deep dive character study, not something that's just surface level horseshit. Even when I hear that as a pitch, I'm going, yes. How much do you need, and when can we start? So,
yeah.
Think about the future. So
think about the future.
I think we're going to be putting a lot of these kind of sayings peppered through the podcast tonight.
Funny, the references so far have all been to Jack Nicholson, which, as you say that Heath Ledger is overrated, but still good, I think Jack Nicholson is underrated in light of how well Heath Ledger was received as Joker. I think that people have largely forgotten Jack Nicholson's performance. That's not this show, but we're talking about the character, so fuck it. I think that it's largely forgotten, and that is a crime.
If that's the case, it is a crime, but I think people's main complaint is that Jack was playing Jack and not the Joker. But I would argue that Jack could be the Joker if things didn't turn out as well in his life. Yeah, he's got the personality and the underpinnings of what could eventually arise as someone a bit unhinged. So I enjoyed the performance.
Okay, I just want to do a little thing on Jack, and then we can move on to Joaquin Phoenix here. And that is just that I think that the scenes before he becomes Joker in Tim Burton, like Jack Nicholson before he becomes a Joker, people don't remember those scenes, and I think they're great. And the context, he's basically this low-level enforcer in this gang, and nobody likes him because he's a dick. And he's having an affair with the boss's lady, and is totally oblivious to the fact that they know that he's doing that, but he's such a narcissist in that movie. You remember that scene? He's wearing that purple suit, and he's in the mirror, and he's straightening it up, and she comes on, and she puts her hand on his shoulder.
I didn't ask.
You look fine. Yeah, I didn't ask. And then he looks down at her hand that's on his suit, and shrugs it off. Nobody remembers that fucking scene, and it's so good. And that's that character. He's so obsessed, and that whole movie is about how Batman's stealing his fucking press. He's like Donald Trump. He can't stand that somebody else is bigger than him on TV. And that's his whole motivation. Well, that and falling into a vat of chemicals. But I think a lot of that is forgotten. And I think that's a shame, because I think there's a lot of great work in that movie that just, for whatever reason, we don't remember anymore. And I think that's a fucking shame. Anyway,
it's a shame, but I do want to say that his revealing of himself as Joker to Grissom is fucking iconic.
Oh, it's so great. Jack is dead, my friend.
Yes.
Call me Joker.
It's great. Fantastic.
I might watch that later, actually, after we're done and I'm turned to the fucking wind. Anyway, one thing, let's get one thing out of the way. I think we can probably both agree on, without discussion, Joaquin Phoenix was just a fucking dynamo in this movie.
Oh, yeah. He'll get nominated for an Oscar for sure. And if he doesn't, it's on, baby. It's on.
If he doesn't win, that's a miscarriage of justice, in my opinion.
Oh, well, yes, but I don't know who else is going to be nominated, and I probably will not see everyone's work. So technically, we cannot judge fairly. But yes,
but he needs to get nominated. If he doesn't get nominated,
he'll get nominated. He'll get nominated, and fantastic. Like that to me is the solid of this movie, 100%. And I'm so happy that every facet of this movie is about him. They don't bullshit about other stuff, even though there's other layers that's going around him. But it's really all about him. This movie's focus is on him, and I love that.
His physicality, he's so grotesque. Like, there's that scene where he's, like, lacing up his boots. It's in the trailer a little bit, where you come in on his back, and he's not wearing a shirt.
He's all bony. And
but it's great. I think there's a human being there, but it looks like, I don't know, man. He looks like the Blob or something. It's disgusting. It's so gross.
It is. There's symbology behind it, obviously, is society has chewed this motherfucker and spit him out. And it's pretty much half-digested food waste that's left here. That's part of the reason why he went that way. I actually found it interesting that I read an interview, and Phoenix's original plan was to be overweight for Joker.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
After he thought about it more and had discussions with Phillips, he reverted to the machinist. Whatever Bale can do, I could do better. So essentially, that's
that definitely makes more sense. I mean, that's an interesting idea, but I mean, I'm sure he could have pulled it off no matter what weight he was. But
no, this makes more sense. Way better. And to be fair, I mean, the Joker is wiry, so
yes,
I prefer this look anyways. I think it's more appropriate.
Yeah, makes more sense. Absolutely. So we've got that out of the way. Great performance. Oh, man, I don't even know where to start with this movie. Okay, it's 1981, Gotham City. So we see a very gray, bleak, gritty, sprawling metropolis. Pardon the pun. That's clearly in the grips of, I guess, an economic downturn. People are on the street. People are hungry. People are unemployed. Arthur Fleck in particular, he's working a shit job as a clown, which is an interesting career choice for somebody who has clinically uncontrollable laughter. So let's talk about that a little bit. We talked about his performance. So the character has this condition where, as we discover when he's on the bus, when he's making faces at the kid, he's just trying to goof around. And he hands the mom the card because he starts laughing uncontrollably. And we can see that the laughter isn't good-natured or anything. It pains him to laugh. This, in my opinion, is sort of the interpretation of the disfigurement of the Joker. It's usually been seen as a visibly physical disfigurement with Heath Ledger's scars or Jack Nicholson's severed nerve in the face and acid scarring, I guess, and Jared Leto's, I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, best leave him out of the conversation. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jared Leto played a guy named Joker and had green hair, and that's all we're going to say about that. So I guess this Joker, his disfigurement, how did that play for you, that interpretation?
Fucking fantastic. I'll say that. Great choice. I did see the interview with Phoenix, how he, after a lot of research and thinking, he modeled it after a real physical condition of someone who can't control his laughter, and he starts choking because he wants to stop it, or he's in pain. And that's where all of this kind of came from. It's the actual condition. I cannot recall the name of it, but I love this choice because I also think that's the irony of it as well, is if he does become the Joker, or even if by the end of this movie he is a Joker, I think that's kind of the joke. And that's what he even says. He thought his life was a tragedy and it's actually a comedy. And this is the beginnings of that internally, like it's his destiny. But you can interpret it so many different ways. Like, as I said, destiny, you can look at it, the fact that because it pains him so, he was hiding it for so long, but then he actually does get the last laugh. I think by the end of the movie, even though I don't think it's true, I was hoping, I'd like to get into that too. I thought he controlled his laughter after he kind of accepted who he was, or his calling, or whatever we want to describe it as. Or as he goes deeper into the rabbit hole, becomes more of that sociopath or psychopath. And then I thought towards the end of the movie, he was not laughing uncontrollably in this manner as he went down further into this. But then the last scene when he's back in the psycho ward, he does laugh again, which I didn't like. I thought that would be an interesting choice, is that it went away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just random thoughts. Again, We got nothing prepared. This is not something I could take notes at. So I'm just rambling. I haven't watched a lot of reviews or anything like that. Thoughts on the top of my head, but final say is yes, great choice. I loved it. Just laugh.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job with showing how it pained him. You saw it was joyless. You saw that he basically hated it anytime he started. And that would have been an interesting choice, like you say, if it would have been clearer that he lost that affliction towards the end. Like, it just didn't pain him to laugh all the time at the end after he was what he was.
Yeah, I'd have to watch that ward scene again because my memory tells me that it did pain him again. He did start choking up when he laughed at the end of the movie, and that's what stuck with me. But yeah, because it's just like it's caused by a mental instability. Again, I'm not an expert on this condition. I don't even know what the fucking name is.
Yeah,
but, if that is something that's miswired in his brain and he cannot control it, or that's the condition, then by achieving some kind of mental state, he would have that control. And I thought that would have been an interesting evolution of the character. But I don't think they went that way.
I think that was one of my issues with the film. So I believe they articulated that the laughter was like a physical injury. That was a brain injury. So that wasn't like a mental illness. That was like a physical injury.
Because he was abused?
Yeah, like he had brain trauma.
Did they say that in the movie, though?
He
actually had brain trauma? I just remember he was abused.
Yeah, that was what his little card said when he handed it to the lady.
I thought it just said, I thought he said, I have a condition.
Yeah, and she like turns the card over as caused by brain injury.
Okay,
that was the
I don't know if it's physical or mental, but maybe
that was what they had suggested. Well, we can talk about open for interpretation on that as well, but I do believe that was what the suggestion was, is that he had a brain injury, and that's why he laughed, which is fine. But one of the issues I had was, what was his mental illness? You know what I mean? Like, if I had cancer, my physical affliction is like, I've got cancer, or I've got the flu, or I have AIDS or something. Like he has a mental illness. What is it? Which one? There's more than one. So what was wrong with him?
We're going down a road to pull a Padme. I cannot follow. It's like, because this is one of those subject matters that became touchy. Talking about this movie is how they dealt with mental illness. And me not being a psychiatrist or a psychologist, it's very hard for me to say. I know you're trying to find a label on what's going on, but this looks like a guy who has had a rough life. He's in a state of depression, and he's giving warning signs to a social worker. There's something more that's wrong with him, but she's not listening. And the system is letting him down, and we'll get into that later. Like, they're going to cut funding. She's not paying attention because she probably knows they're cutting funding. So I'm not sure that the focus of the movie is labeling what he had. You mentioned that this is in the 80s and we're looking like it's an economic downturn, whether a depression or recession. I'm surprised it wasn't taking place in the 70s. It felt more like a 70s thing.
Yeah.
And when there was a bit more of that troubled time. So I'm not entirely sure why they said it in the 80s.
Well, it takes place firmly in 1981.
But it had a 70s vibe.
It had a 70s vibe, but I think there is a specific reason why they said it in 1981. Because 81 was like the bottom, if we're talking about economically in the Western Hemisphere.
Okay, so then that's fine. Point being, though, is if it's troubled times, that's what she says. The funding's cut. They can't help anybody anymore. Right. Too many motherfuckers out there who are going through tough times. It's unfortunate and sad. And guess what? Government's cut funding. No one cares. You're on your own. Fuck you. That's the government treating its citizens. Whether it's then or now, it's a commentary on now as well. But I don't think that's the focus if you're saying, what did he have? That's one of the things we can discuss is in this interpretation of the Joker as a byproduct of society. And I don't know if I'm 100% on board with that message, but I felt like that was his message at the end of the movie before he kills Al Capone there. So... But I mean, I don't know. What do you think? It's hard for me to label.
Well,
I mean, I didn't find that to be terribly important because obviously if he's saying, I always have terrible thoughts, you're not fucking listening to me. He's telling the social worker that on his subsequent visit later in the film. This guy's heading down a path of, was a sociopath or psychopath?
Yeah. Actually, I love how he delivers that line there where he's just smoking like 84 cigarettes there. And he's like, all I have are negative thoughts. Like, you're not listening. I guess the issue that I had with that is as they're making the movie, they're like, okay, like they're not saying he's just fucking crazy. They're saying he's mentally ill. All right. I don't need you to like overtly diagnose him on screen. I just feel like they used the umbrella, the blanket of mental illness to put the character into. And I found that bit of I don't want to say scapegoat, but it was an easy out. They didn't need to like write any more of that. Like, okay, he's mentally ill. Move on.
But then is he?
Well,
I think that's open to interpretation. There's a lot of things happening here. Again, we'll get into it. Did a lot of this happen just in his imagination? Because a lot of these scenes that we play out as we move forward in the movie are clearly that he's imagining things. I don't know. He could be legitimately crazy. He could be dreaming about this whole fucking thing. I don't know, man. That's what I think is kind of interesting about this movie. You can look at it from different angles, and you still may not be able to pin it. And that fits with a Joker origin story, in my opinion.
Oh boy.
I know it's too early.
It's like, where do we go from here?
Where do we go? Because you could go again.
Okay. No, you bring up things that we need to talk about for sure. But I don't want to do those ones yet. We got to get to those.
Yeah.
I think
we'll get to those later. But
okay,
you're disappointed that they didn't diagnose him clearly.
Not necessarily that. I just feel like they copped out on what was wrong, other than him laughing uncontrollably, which is great. In fact, I think that should have been his whole mental illness. Because if that was your problem, then that was it, and you didn't have another mental illness, like that would socially isolate you. But I don't think that's what socially isolated. That wasn't his problem, or at least that wasn't his whole problem. He had something else wrong with him. Assuming that we'll come back to what he imagined and whatever later. Let's just take for granted that the whole thing happened, other than the obvious parts. I felt a little shortchanged there. It felt like a person who doesn't understand mental illness saying, here's a guy with mental illness, thinking that's the diagnosis. Like calling in sick to work. It's like, oh, well, I'm sick. Look, all right. That works when you're calling into work. But if you got to go to the doctor, you'd be like, I'm sick. Oh, well, here's some medicine. Like, it's more complex than that. You go to the doctor and say, I'm sick. Okay, well, what's wrong?
His elbow just jerks uncontrollably.
Yes, his elbow jerks uncontrollably. Maybe he's just a close talker.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's just a low talker or a high talker.
But I'll say this. If he's not clearly diagnosed, and he's just a guy who has some problems, but maybe he's just a guy he put through hell. He's a shit out of luck guy. Social pressures, society pressures have kind of painted him a hole. I mean, a lot of people who have problems, I would imagine, stem from situations like this. I'm not saying they're going to go out and start mass killing people or starting a revolt against the whole social system or whatever. I'm just saying that a lot of people start in the same spot that he does, and they develop mental illness, or maybe they don't. I'm not an expert. You're not an expert. Maybe you're right, and Phillips just said, here, I'm washing this with my hands here, and I'm just going to label him as a guy who has mental illness. And I think that's where your problem is coming from, is the writer and the director's just saying, here, this guy who has mental illness, but we're not going to focus in on that. Maybe that's other people's problems who are criticizing this movie. And that's one of the controversies here. I just feel it's not important to label it, because I really don't think that's the focus of the character, whether it's Arthur Fleck or the Joker himself. We shouldn't be tied down to trying to identify what kind of mental illness does this guy have or not.
He's not well. He's definitely not well.
No, he's not normal. But I think the vagueness of it is kind of maybe his point. Phillips's point is one of the themes here. Society has chewed people up, spit them out. They're not taking care of their citizens, whether it's through social programs or anything else. It's just, life is fucking rough, man. I may have a cushy job, but life is not easy. And some people have it more easier than others, and a lot of people have it worse than I do. So I can just imagine the kind of stress and chaos that people go through. Eventually they snap. Eventually they develop problems. And I don't know if that's one of the themes here. Again, open for debate.
Well, let's talk about society then, because I think that's a good point. Let's talk about society as portrayed in this film here. So we're in 1981. It's Gotham City. It's a stand-in New York City. And in the DC universe, New York City is usually portrayed on two ends. The greatness of New York City, the light side, is Metropolis and Superman, right? Mm-hmm. And the dark side, the crime, the grit, the bad stuff is usually portrayed. That's Gotham City. So I think that's one of the most interesting things the DC universe has ever done, is like they've taken one city and they pulled it into two and made it two different things to highlight what's great and what's awful. I mean, Gotham City is obviously the dark side of that. So 1981, economic downturn, deinstitutionalization of mental hospitals. Not that we're political on this. It's a Ronald Reagan policy. We're not Americans, so fuck it, who cares? So we're looking at that world. That's the physical setting here. Obviously, this is made today. As we talk, the movie comes out in 2019. So we see a lot of this society. We get the microcosm. We get Arthur Fleck and his position there. It's obviously struggling to get by, lives in a small apartment with his mom. He's got a shit job that he struggles to hold on to and eventually loses. His social worker, so whatever program that he's involved in where he goes to a social worker is defunded. He can't go and get his help, can't get his meds. Poor people are all over the place. Thomas Wayne, who stands up basically for the rich and powerful of Gotham City, and he's a humongous dickwad.
I found that very interesting.
I did too, actually.
Yeah, it's a different take.
Definitely a different take on Thomas Wayne.
This is the direct message. This is Trump's America. And this guy is like a Trump. He's a guy who puts on a face. In reality, he's just a snake. Once he gets his position, he's powerful and stuff like that. But behind the scenes, he's an ass, as you said, dickwad. So
yeah, cares about power and cares about himself. And that's basically it.
That's right. Yeah. It's a commentary on class and how society has neglected its middle or lower class citizens.
Yeah.
That's where all these people are revolting or protesting and eventually start wearing clown masks.
How did you feel about that? Like, how did you feel about that portrayal? Did that work for you?
Are we talking about Thomas Wayne now?
Well, all of it. Thomas Wayne, how we see the lower class react as they put on the clown masks, and like everybody.
They are making Joker the anti-hero. So you're sympathizing with him from the first scene all the way through to the end of the movie, even though he does a couple of horrific acts.
NBD. It's all good.
Yeah. You could argue a couple of those people deserved it. Get into that later. But you sympathize with him and you sympathize with the people because you see how the 1% does treat its citizens. This is a problem. I don't have any faith in the system. I don't have any faith in politicians. We're here in Canada. I don't think all of these motherfuckers are going to do a shitty job. But be that as it may, I don't care. I'll vote one way, but I mean, no one's going to do anything. Anyways, system's going to tie them down. And once they get their position of power, they're going to do the same bullshit anyways, as anyone else will. So I feel the same way as these people do. And they're even worse. Like, I'm not in the lower class. I'm a middle class citizen. So I can only relate to my situation in the best way I can. But I can imagine how a lower class citizen feels as well. Like, look what's happening now, even in Canada, where we live. It's a bunch of bullshit what's going on right now. Same thing's going out there, but the politicians, the people in power, they are elected officials who are supposed to serve the populace. They're looking out for themselves and the people who fund their campaigns. And what was surprising here is, as we said, Thomas Wayne is portrayed differently than the traditional Batman take, where he seems to always be that beacon of light that inspires Batman to be good. And I found that interesting here. That really wasn't the case. But maybe Bruce or Batman doesn't know that. And I found that kind of interesting.
I actually really found the take on Thomas Wayne very refreshing. That was really interesting. But there was nobody in this movie that was good. There was no goodness. So the 1% was dicks. And then the oppressed were just as bad because they rallied behind a guy who murdered 3 people on a subway. So I had trouble seeing who was supposed to be good. Like, nobody was trying to do good in this movie. Arthur, like, when he shot those guys in the subway, I didn't feel bad about those guys at all.
Felt bad about the guy he chased down.
Yeah, maybe that guy.
The platform a bit there. He already shot him in the leg. He got his comeuppance in a sense. So
he didn't need to be executed.
No. The other guys deserved it. So that was
the other guys deserved it. Yeah. I felt bad for the guy that he executed, but that felt like that served Arthur's story because he's a murderer, so he's going to do that. And it made him feel good. Do it. But there was no counterpoint to that. There was nobody around Arthur. I don't think the movie glorified his actions, like some people were saying that it like glorifies that. I don't think that's the case at all. Like, if you identify with him, if you think he's a hero, you probably have some issues you need to go talk to somebody about. I don't think the movie tried to do that at all.
No, I don't think so either.
But I was struggling to find a counterpoint to this character, and not just to the character, but to the world that they created for us. Everything was dark, everything was bleak, and then it was the end. And I kind of had a problem with that.
I understand what you're saying. You're watching a piece of entertainment here. You don't technically want to watch something in your free time to feel like shit. But my counter to your counter is, why can't it be that way? Is that not real? Because you're looking at a snapshot. Let's just say, for example, here is that everyone was portrayed bad. But say, for example, when Joker was at the end on the show, we had people, even though we don't sympathize with the host, who's De Niro's character, because he did make him look like a fool, and he's using him for ratings and just for jokes. But the audience, when Arthur starts to admit that he was the one who killed those guys at the subway, you do hear boos from the crowd. People are in shock. You see the people who are stunned beside
That's true.
So those people really represent the normies, you could say.
Fucking normies. Get that fuck out of here.
So I'm countering you with that.
Yeah, that's true.
And the people who are wearing the Joker masks, I look at it from this perspective as they're looking for anybody who is, because no one's looking out for them in the system, they're obviously going to latch onto someone, right or wrong, who's going to fight the system. Now, I don't support the actions of a murderer, so you can look down on those people, but they are desperate. If you're in that kind of shape, you're in situation, you're in big trouble. And those people really, I know they were looting was occurring, but I don't think those people committed acts of cruelty, violence, or murder. I know maybe some police officers might have gotten trampled, kicked a bit there on the subway.
Yeah.
I can't recall anything else that any of those protesters really did, except for looting.
Other than, like looting and lighting cars on fire, regular rioting, protesting shit.
Right.
Like regular, like not as a joke. That's what happens in
right. So
protests.
I mean,
you're right. They aren't doing anything atrocious. But the characters that we meet, like his coworkers at the clown company, I don't know where, like his boss is a dick. Those teenagers that mug him are obviously dicks.
What about the little person?
Well, he wasn't, and he lived. So I guess that's the thing.
Well, he didn't do anything cruel to Arthur, and that's one of the reasons Arthur let him live.
Yeah,
which is
that's true.
Also an interesting choice. I don't know. I look at it from a movie's perspective. Like, this movie's not here to entertain me. It's definitely trying to say something, whether they succeed at saying it or not. He's trying to really wrap yourself completely around Arthur and his point of view that everyone around society is pretty much 99.999% has failed him. And I think that's part of the director and the writer's intent.
I believe you that's the intent, but then what's the movie saying then? Like, what does it say that, like, okay, the 1%, they're a bunch of assholes. Okay, I think we're all in agreement there. Even though the guys who made this movie are 1%ers, even if they don't think they are. They're assholes, so okay, we'll take that. The people in poverty, not a lot of redeeming qualities there. Robert De Niro's a dick. Arthur's insane. His mom's insane. Like, what is the movie saying about anything? About anybody at that point? It's all fucked. We're all fucked. Everything's fucked. We're all fucked. There's no goodness. There's no nothing. This is what happens.
It's quite possible. That's the interesting thing, is a lot of this could be happening from his perspective. If you're talking about a guy who is seriously deranged, he's not going to see the world that there's a person here helping me or not. Like, say, or you talk about someone who is a literal crazy, he's a serial killer or whatnot, and he's a fucking loon. He's going to still try and murder his psychiatrist, even if he's going to try and help him, no matter what, because he's just that lost. And maybe this is just the path to darkness. And it's about a guy traversing that path into that kind of dark hole. It's not a message. It's a character study. You're looking at this guy who just has nothing. It's a fucking black nothing for him. And that's the fucking joke. It's like McBain.
That's not a very funny joke.
It's like, that's the joke. Closer inspection, these are loafers. So that's essentially what's going on here. That's just one interpretation of it. And that's the interesting thing, because then the light comes from later, if you want to talk about Joker, his counter is Batman. Man who dresses himself all black, but he's representing the light in another deranged sort of way.
Yeah, and that would be fine if there was a Batman here, but there isn't.
No, but fine. It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. You're right. Okay, well, let's talk about that for a second then. We've taken this character, obviously it's still in a DC universe, takes place in Gotham City. Bruce Wayne's character, Thomas Wayne's character, Alfred's character, the murder of the Waynes happens, presumably setting Bruce on the path. So this character does not exist independently of a Batman. But the Batman is not a player in the Joker's life, this Joker's life, at least for another 15 years at least. So what are your thoughts on taking this character away from any influence of Batman and setting him on his own?
Good question. I don't think I could really answer that unless we had a sequel to this movie.
Which we're not going to get.
We may not get, but you never say never. I've seen different interviews with Phoenix there, and while Batman will never come into play directly in the movie, but I think a sequel potentially is in the cards as a possibility, because Phoenix said this is one of the funnest roles he ever had. He had a great time. So when an actor says that, and he's been asked a couple times in different interviews, and Some interviews he's kind of adamant no, and other ones he's kind of not saying yes, but he's open to it. So I don't know. I'd have to see if there was further development here. It's a good question, because the other question that I was going to bring up at the end is a possibility that this is not the Joker. This whole act happened may have inspired the true Joker.
Yeah, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say fuck that.
My preference is not that way.
Why? Then why? But why? Why do that?
No, I'm just saying that's you're saying...
No, I know that's a possibility.
You
and I know
asked
that's
a
been
question.
hinted at.
No, you asked a question.
And I demand an answer.
No, so you said, what do you think in the absence of Batman? What does this mean? What does this movie mean for the Joker? I'm just giving you a possibility here that maybe because it is about 10 years at minimum away from a young Batman first stepping foot into Gotham City, that you're not going to have this Joker run rampant killing thousands of people until he's old enough, right? Technically.
We'll say dozens of people. Thousands is a lot. Like, the Joker's not a weapon of mass destruction.
You're right. So then maybe it's only a few people here and there. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying that's a possibility. That one possibility is then if that's the case, then this is not the true Joker. These events inspire that one guy.
But then what's the goddamn point of this movie if that's the case?
Maybe there's none. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what I want.
No, but I know you're not saying that's definitely it. But let's just have fun, go down a rabbit hole.
But that would be the point. It inspired the Joker.
But then what is the point of this movie? So it inspires the character that we actually want to know about. and they made a movie about some other dickhead.
Played by Jared Leto.
Yeah, exactly. This character inspired Jared Leto. That would be a good joke. Yeah, so that kid grows up to be Ben Affleck. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
But Alfred grows up to be Jeremy Irons, and that's pretty fucking dope. I'll take that any day. Jeremy Irons rules.
Yes, he does.
Okay, so, Jesus Christ. I got so much I need to say about this movie, and I just don't know where to go.
Why don't we go through parts of the movie, and I'm sure things will pop up as we need to discuss. How about we talk about his career as the clown a little bit there? So maybe your thought process on the fact that his mom, like his kind of what was in his head was that his mom said that he would make people laugh, and his goal to be a comedian, and like his joke book, which was full of dark imagery and suicidal thoughts and all those kind of things. What are your thoughts there when you were watching that?
I kind of have two thoughts. I'm of two minds of that. So one, it felt a little bit, I don't know if forced is the right word, maybe a little contrived, because they needed to put something in the movie that is Joker adjacent. They've said that one of their influences was the book, The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke basically tells the story of the Joker's origin, basically the first origin story of the Joker in comic continuity. And it told, I think it basically said it was like one possible past. And in there, he was an aspiring stand-up comedian. And I think he says like he had one bad day and then it all went downhill. That was one of their inspirations for the film. They wanted to tie that in. It felt difficult for me, for somebody who just had absolutely no other connection to stand-up comedy other than the movie wanted him to be an aspiring stand-up comic. So I had trouble with that. That being said, that scene where he goes to a stand-up show and he's taking notes and he laughs at
all the wrong things,
all the wrong places, like he's fake. I don't even know if he thought those parts were funny that he laughed at because it was his fake laugh. I loved that scene where the camera's out wide and they're focusing on the crowd and the guy's telling jokes and they're laughing, and then there'd be a pause and then he'd say something else that wasn't the punchline and you could hear Arthur's laugh in the background, and the camera slowly zooms down on him and you see him taking notes, and you can see he just has no fucking clue when to laugh and how to behave there, and he's trying to like decode it like a smart person, like, okay, I can figure out how to be funny by going to school. Basically, I'm going to take notes in class, which is like what he was doing.
So I found it interesting here. So I've only seen the movie once, but I did take notice when he was writing his notes, even though it was very juvenile the way he was writing it down. Oh, make sex jokes, it's going to make people laugh. Technically, that's astute, correct note from a guy who is trying to observe stand-up comedy for maybe potentially the first time. Hearing these kind of jokes, a live performer, right? Oh, okay, this kind of hit. But he didn't laugh when he wrote that down. Then he laughed uncontrollably later. Yeah. After he took the correct note down. And I thought that was interesting.
I thought that was so good. I wish they would have played off of that because it was almost like he was taking notes because he saw the crowd react. This is what they find funny. And that was such a sociopathic thing to do. And that was so good.
I agree.
But they didn't do anything else after that. He didn't use that. And here's what happened that I didn't like, and maybe my only possible criticism of his performance. And it's probably more a problem with the script. But when he gets up on stage, and we only see him once, I think it would have been great if we had seen him get up on stage multiple times and evolve and learn how to manipulate an audience. I think that would have been great. He gets up on stage and the act that goes viral somehow, because spoilers, everybody, you didn't have that shit in 1981. Your act wasn't going viral. It's like
it wasn't going viral. Okay.
Well, but nobody, no, dude, that didn't happen back then. That was a stretch. That was a huge stretch narratively. And I understand that they wanted to try to find a way to get him onto the show at the end, but that was ridiculous.
Going viral, yes, ridiculous. Being taped on stage there in a comedy club, not out of the question. And if the guy who runs that comedy club, because, De Niro, I forget the character De Niro plays in this movie.
Murray something.
Yeah, Murray. So maybe this guy has an in, and I think this could have benefited from a small piece of exposition, even if it's a phone call with De Niro talking to this guy in a cut scene or something like that. Maybe it is a cut scene. You never know. You have all these comics taping their act through a camera. Cameras existed in 81. Video cameras.
They did.
So if all these comics were taping their act, but one of these comics knew Murray, because comics go on talk shows, he could have grabbed this piece of tape, sent it to him, and then that's where it stemmed from. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
It's one of the things that's painted over in this movie that really bugged the shit out of me.
I can overlook something like that because I can piece together something sensible about it that still fits in the world of comedians. So
the thing is, though, I don't want to have to piece together something like that. I want the movie to be able to do it on its own. Like, I don't want to do the movie's work for it. That's just laziness there for me. And that's just filmmaking criticism. But we don't need to dwell on that. What I was saying about his act is when he gets up there and he tells his jokes, outside of when he's unfortunately laughing uncontrollably, which does, is he looks and sounds like a child. He's like, when I was a kid, I told everybody I was going to be a stand-up comedian and everybody laughed. Well, nobody's laughing now. And the way he delivers that is like how a 12-year-old would have delivered that line. And that didn't feel consistent with the character. I lost my empathy for him at that point. And he acted the same way when he got on TV at the end, when he got onto the show. He was the same petulant child. And I was like, fuck this guy. So that was a huge failing for me. Those really put me off. If he'd actually been able to generate some laughs, genuine, had some good jokes up on stage, and maybe he didn't know why they were funny, that would have been good. He wasn't confident when he was in front of people, as the Joker, and especially at the end. He wasn't confident. He was just an angry child to me.
I want to touch base on the time when he's on Murray's show a little later. So let's bring that up later. Let's focus on his comedy act. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because again, we've only seen the movie once. Mm-hmm. When we see him first actually get on stage and he just starts laughing uncontrollably, we don't see him say those lines that you're referring to, he sounds like a child. That comes later when he's on TV. Is that correct?
We only see him do his act the one time. Is that
right? So
that's the same act, though, isn't it?
Yes, it's the same act. My point being, though, is the lines that's losing you, where he sounds like a child,
right.
Oh, I'm gonna, I was meant to be a comedian, and I'm gonna put a smile on everyone's face. My mom said this and that.
Right.
That was when he was in the hospital with his mom, who's dying.
Yeah, that's when he's on
TV.
That's right. Yeah.
But when we see him go on stage, we only see him laugh uncontrollably, so he can't do his act. Is that correct? I think that's correct.
That might be the case. You could be right. I don't know.
What I focused on, he goes on stage and he cannot tell his jokes the way he wants to. He's desperately trying to, but he's laughing and he's in pain because of the laughter.
Yeah.
There's more behind the performance there through his eyes, because you can see that this was his dream and his condition wouldn't let him even attempt to accomplish it. And I found that powerful. That touched me. That was such an amazing performance that I just felt for the guy, because this guy's so messed up in multiple different ways. He has his chance. He's doing what he's setting out to do. That's a lot of gusto to go out there in front of people. You have to be proud of someone like that. He's achieving it. As good or bad as he is, for someone to do what they set out to do as part of their dream, you could stand up and applaud that. And you're proud to see someone do that. but then he couldn't do it because of his condition or potential mental illness or whatever it may be. I thought that was powerful. That's just coming from me.
Notwithstanding, I don't remember if the other part took place here. That part, you're right. Yeah, no, that part was great on his part. Anytime he had his laugh going and you could see how much it hurt him, and especially in this case, was excellent.
Yeah, and I think the scenes you're referring to are just off the TV when he's making fun of him.
Yeah, okay. But even that being the case, that was still his act. I thought we had seen that, but well, either way, that felt out of character.
Let's address your criticism. I will partially agree with you there that, yeah, it could have been played a bit better instead of acting like a child. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about the other point later, as you say. What else can we talk about for the movie?
What about the fucking clown who gives him the gun and a little person? What did you think of all these scenes and his relationship with his coworkers? And what was the point of that gun thing except for getting him fired, kind of initializing all that? Was there anything else there? Did you enjoy these scenes and these other?
I did enjoy the scenes with his little troupe there, if you want to call it that. He's in a shitty job and these are his shitty fucking coworkers. And they were really good. I thought that played really well. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, I think, for the guy to say, here's a gun, I'm just going to give it to you like that. Is a little bit of a stretch, but it's Gotham City, so I guess I can make leaps like that. Sets up a couple things that this is where he gets his idea for clown makeup, obviously. And it sets up the subway scene because he actually has a gun, and that is his sort of first introduction into violence. I think it would have been more interesting if it had been like a knife or something, like a little more personal.
Yeah, more visceral and more personal. It feels like more like a Joker weapon.
More like a Joker, exactly, yeah.
But for someone who's so wiry and is not trained in anything, I think I prefer the gun in this kind of setting, the way this Joker is portrayed, because this guy is not intimidating if he pulls a knife.
No,
in a sense, until he gains that confidence, and I think that clown knows it, like his coworker. The only thing that's really going to protect him from getting mugged and beaten like he was before is a gun.
Yeah, that's right. The gun is more like for the show. It's meant to shoot anybody, but you can back somebody up. But you pull a knife, like you say, pull a knife on him, this wiry guy, it's like, that's not intimidating. It's not help you.
No.
And like, the movie would have just been so much more grotesquely violent. The gun makes it a little more, and it's almost like the first time he shoots the guy, it was almost not necessarily by accident, but it felt to me, and again, I only saw it the once, when he shoots the first guy in the subway, it happened so quickly. He did it on purpose, but didn't think about it. Whereas, like, you're going to stab somebody, it doesn't happen quickly.
No, and you don't condone murder, but to me, those first two things they made sense. They're technically still in an act of self-defense. The guy is being beaten to a pulp. You don't know if you're going to die. At that point, it's fight or death. And you do what you can to survive at that point.
Yeah. As far as the violence in the movie, like the subway, all of that played out logically, and it felt real. It felt true. I bought all of that. I thought they played that really well. He didn't want to shoot those first guys. He was trying to mind his own business, but his laughing takes over. It felt real. That worked really well. But I don't know if this is what we meant to talk about. I had a bit of a problem with then the very next day, it's all about this clown vigilante who kills these Wall Street bros on the subway. Like, in a city like Gotham, 20 people are getting murdered every day. It's a movement, like, right off the hop.
I know. I hear you, but I will say it's also a movie. We're trying to make... This movie's trying to be real and gritty and grounded. And I hear what you're saying. I mean, the next day, the now movement starts. I don't think it was the next day. I do know that the news pointed out that the next day, and then there were, I guess on the radio, there were people supporting it, I guess. I think the movement started in the time frame of the movie. It wasn't the next day. It was a few days later. Gradually, it was gaining momentum.
Well, but the papers were like clown vigilante, like right away. The only person who saw it was that woman who ran out of the car, subway car, because nobody else was in the subway car. It was just her. So she's the one who saw that there was a guy in clown makeup who shot these dudes.
But so technically could have saved her from getting raped. She tells it how it is. These guys were going to rape me, and I think she probably witnessed him starting to get beat up, and then they die. So yeah, clown vigilante.
Yeah, and then everybody starts wearing clown.
Well, hey man, as I said, if society's fucking you over, you're going to support the one guy going against the system.
Yeah,
standing up for this.
I could believe something like that happening. Well, actually, you know what? No. Even if that happened today with social media and the viral nature of things today, I'd have trouble believing that after one incident. In 1981, it just feels like somebody doesn't understand what the actual social conditions would have been. For that to be movement after one thing in a city that large with so much crime, it was a leap.
Definitely still is a leap, 100%. But I'll say two things. Desperate times, people are going to latch on to desperate measures. So that will catch fire quickly. And two, it's a movie. You don't have time to...
I can't... You can say that about any movie. It's a movie. That doesn't give its failings, though.
I hear you, but we've also said that in multiple movies. We've talked about... I can recall Back to the Future. What did it say about Marty coming back and all of a sudden his parents are being rich and they got this and that and stuff like that at the end of the movie? And we were able to forgive it because you don't have 20 minutes at the end of the movie. What's the best way to show that their lives are better visually? And Zemeckis and the writers said, okay, we can't move them into a mansion, but we can at least show them that, hey, brother's got a job, he's wearing a suit, girl's got a relationship, mom and dad are together, and they've got a bit of money, and Marty's got his fucking truck. We got 2 minutes to show it. There you go.
Here's the difference is the movie was made in 1985. And this movie is made in 2019, about 1981. So it's different when you're trying to wrap up a movie and you're using visual shorthand. This is using that stuff to get to other parts of the storyline that you couldn't get to otherwise, that they could have explored instead of doing other things that they didn't need to. He messes up these three dudes, kills them, executes that guy, and doesn't get recognized in the newspaper. And it bugs him because he thinks he did a great thing. It's something else in the newspaper, like Thomas Wayne the Dick cutting a ribbon at some children's hospital or something. He doesn't do anything for anybody. And so he kills somebody else, and he actually becomes a vigilante. This would be an interesting parallel because Batman's a vigilante. Mm-hmm. So what if he did a couple of other things and starts escalating? His crimes never escalate in a natural progression. He kills these three dudes and doesn't really do anything else till later on in the movie when he shoots Robert De Niro, right?
Oh, he kills his clown friend.
Oh, right. He kills the clown friend. Exactly. So there's that. But he doesn't do anything else in between there that indicates to me any escalation in his acceptance of being a violent guy. I liked the subway stuff because I got the impression after that he felt good about it. And I felt that he was surprised that he felt good about it. But what if that had escalated a little bit more slowly and the movement built behind him and the press started to build behind him? And he's like, yeah, I got this thing going on. And that would have worked to make me believe that the character that is the Joker now. He did a couple of things by accident, sort of on purpose, did some other things on purpose, and then it escalated. You can tell me that story. Well, and I guess he killed his mom, too, for some reason. I don't know. I don't want to rewrite the movie. That's not really my job.
The only comment I have to what the path you're wanting or imagining or preferring the movie to maybe go down on, which you feel maybe a shortcoming, is that's Joker. That's a guy who may not follow a rational progression or a logic pathway to get from A to B or A to Z. He might go, instead of A, B, C, D, he might go A, Z, F, J, and then back up at A. So because of the character's history, and if we are witnessing the Joker, this is something I can, because to me, going down this dark path, when someone decides to do that, it's not rational. As much as we want to rationalize it and understand it, maybe things we just cannot grasp and understand. Because I cannot grasp somebody willingly wanting to commit crimes and murder. Yet we have people who do that. It's not criminal. But when you want to go and kill somebody for the sake of killing somebody, I can't rationalize that. Maybe some other deranged individuals can, but then they're deranged. So to me, the Joker is a deranged individual, and that's this story. So I can forgive these kind of little logic mishaps because Joker's mind is a tangled web of mishaps. And I think, yes, maybe we could argue that the movie could have lingered and maybe focused a bit more on some of that, but then I think it would have been a different movie. And I think that this Joker is an outcome from different pressures. Part mind, part society. So let's just move on now. I forget the question I was going to ask you.
I was just going to say, what was your question?
Yeah. So, yeah, let's move on then. So then how about, maybe this was part of where I was going to come from as part of my question, is that he's kind of imagining things throughout the middle of the movie. Him, as you said, the stand-up comic. Let's talk about his relationship with that woman, the lady in his apartment building. I forget her name. I don't even think they mentioned her name, honestly.
I don't know that they did either. Yeah.
Played by, what's her name?
Zazie Beetz.
Beetz. That's a name. And then later on, after he kills the clown, his clown friend, he starts imagining going on Murray's show.
Mhm.
I can't remember if this was before the call or after the call. He gets to actually go on the show, and his plan is to kill himself and not Murray.
At least that's what we think, because he kind of play acts it out, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So what do you think of all of this stuff?
So when he fantasizes about being on the show, I feel like that's earlier, right? That's before he sees himself, like that's before Murray airs.
That's right. There's even this thought about Thomas Wayne being the potential father.
That's right.
So we should probably talk about that too, but let's talk about these scenes.
Yeah. So the fantasy of him being on Murray's show, I dug that scene. I thought that worked really well. It plays out like a perfect boyhood fantasy. He behaves like a child, and it worked for that fantasy. And he's like being idolized on there by Murray. He notices him in the audience because of his unusual laugh and all that. That was a really excellent introduction to that interplay, and that sets up the ending. Good choices there. That was great. The imagined relationship with his neighbor there, I also thought that played out really well too.
So we agree it is imagined.
It is, because we're shown that it's imagined, because we see the scenes later.
That's right.
Later we see the same scenes, only where he's there and she's not where she was when we originally saw it.
Did we see that? I couldn't remember. All I remembered is when he went into the apartment towards the end of the movie. But it happened so fast, I thought she said, "How is your mother?" or something like that. So I thought maybe this was a real relationship and she just didn't want him there. Because he kind of broke in.
Because he takes her to a movie, and in the first scene, like when you think that it's real, like she's there in the movie with him and she's at the comedy club. When he breaks into the apartment, then it shows those scenes again, then it cuts, like she's there with him, and then it cuts where he's at the movie by himself. And yeah, like all those scenes happen, and there's a cut, like where she's there, and then boom, it's gone, so she's gone.
I can't recall they showed those scenes. All I remembered that she said something about the mom. And then it was clear after that. It felt more like, it was imaginary then.
Yeah, that's what I took out of it, is that it was all imaginary. And I thought that was played well. I like that scene where he goes into the apartment. He's messed up. So he goes into the apartment, and she's freaked out. And I'm presuming that the relationship was imaginary. He fantasized, like fucking hell. When he was on Murray's show, when he fantasized about being on Murray's show the first time, or the only time, he fantasized about being there. That was clearly him fantasizing, pretending. He knew it wasn't real.
That's right.
So did he know that his relationship with her wasn't real and he was fantasizing it? Or was he delusional and thought it was real?
Good question. From the way it's filmed, it feels like he was delusional and thought it was real, right? Because then he storms out of the apartment back to his apartment.
Right.
So you have to go with those visual clues and say, he's delusional. He thought it was real.
That's what I think. Exactly. So I guess then that shows that he's progressing down
the rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole, exactly. He made up fantasies before, and now he's believing his made up fantasies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that. That's fine. That's good. That works for me.
And I prefer that explanation.
I think so
anyways.
too. Yeah, I think so too. What else were we talking about?
Well, I guess just him kind of imagining himself then to execute himself. And I loved that whole.
I love that too. I thought that was excellent.
And again, I think we haven't touched on it, is another inspiration for the look and feel of this movie, and also the story is this taxi driver Scorsese. It's got a Scorsese 70s feel to everything, and King of Comedy, which is a different movie. But I know those are two of the inspirations for this movie as well.
They are, yeah.
So I enjoyed those scenes.
Yeah, very good. I thought they telegraphed a little bit too much of what was actually going to happen, because he wasn't going to kill himself. So when he was doing that, I'm like, okay, well, he's going to shoot Robert De Niro in the face. That was the first thing I thought when he did that. So then when it actually happened, I wasn't surprised, when I felt like I was supposed to be surprised. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to his performance, great, perfect performance. In fact, I almost feel like it would have been better for the movie if he actually had shot himself on the air. Like, that would have been more surprising. And I know that doesn't fit with what the film is at all. But regardless of that, that was great. As shitty as it is to say, I enjoyed a scene where a guy was telegraphing his own suicide on national television, but played it really well.
No, I agree. And now that I think about it, I mean, oh man, I don't know how I'd react if he killed himself. I think it'd be a different movie altogether.
Oh yeah, it would have been, yeah.
Just echo what you said to save some time. Loved every aspect of here. Masterful performance. I loved all of the fantasy elements there, and him practicing, coming out on stage. He's watching TV, practicing, and then he actually gets the call to go on. Mm-hmm. The two co-workers come and visit him. Obviously, Arthur's upset at the bigger fellow who gave him the gun. caused him some of the trouble. What did you think of this whole scene? Did it work for you? The motivation to kill him? Does it fit within the character?
I'm not going to say I liked it because that wouldn't be the right word, but it worked for me. I think they did a really good job of building tension in this scene. So he kills the guy that felt like the choice he would have made there. And then the
little person, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, you can go. And I've read criticisms of this. They're making fun of him for being a little person. And yeah, that's exactly what happened. They were making fun of him. But for better or worse, they used that to build tension in a really honest way because I didn't know what was going to happen. He's like, oh, you can go. And I was like, okay, he's going to go.
And then the latch.
Can't reach the fucking latch. And I was just like, oh, fuck. Like, in the context of a movie that's called Joker, about the Joker, that's like the perfect joke for the Joker. I'm going to let you go. No problem. And it's a little person who unfairly is a group that's been made fun of and used for jokes, and you can't reach the thing. And then he's got to be like, hey, I can't reach it. And then you're like, shit. I was like, is he going to kill this guy now because he can't get out? Like, what's going to happen? He's going to change his mind. It was so good. It was such a well done scene. Tension was perfect. It's funny, but I felt bad about laughing at it because you don't want to laugh at somebody because they're who they are, like a little person. You don't want to laugh at them but that's the joke. But you're supposed to feel uncomfortable that you're laughing at that. That was like one of the meta jokes that I feel like the Joker would pull if it was a real person. And I think the movie was aware of that and pulled that joke off perfectly, and that it let him go. It just worked from start to finish. That worked great. That might have been my favorite part of the movie, was that scene.
I did laugh. I think a lot of the theater in my showing laughed with the little person trying to reach the latch. It did build tension, and I felt bad for laughing. But I think, as you said, within the context of a movie called The Joker, it works. And I will say that the little person acted wonderfully through all of these scenes, that actor. And I like the way it was shot and the blood splatter and all that stuff all over his face, some of these shots here. My problem stems from the way he just decided at that moment to kill that one clown. I think I would have preferred a different setting for that.
I don't remember what happened, why he decided to do that.
Again, seeing the movie only the one time, I can't recall if he said something that kind of made him unhinged, or if he just said, this guy fucked me over. He's coming to my house. I'm getting ready to go on the show. Fuck this guy. And he just had his moment. And yeah, it could be, that's a Joker thing. You just don't know. Crime, he's an anarchist, deranged guy, or whether he's Joker or not Joker, it doesn't matter. You don't know what's going to happen with a crazy person who now wants to kill or is ready to kill. I just kind of feel that this could have been done in a different way, in a different setting. And I felt that it was just shoehorned in. Like, this death felt forced. It didn't feel right in its place in the movie. Now, in a sense, it does feel right, because then the next scene, which I do want to talk to you, is about him dancing on the stairs. After he kills this clown, gets his revenge in a sense, then he is kind of accepted everything, who he is now. It's like he's a different person. I feel like his personality changes, right? Mm-hmm. And it was this killing that kind of solidified that, like this choice. I just felt it could have been done better instead of in his an apartment and just it was spontaneous. To me, it's natural, and in a movie that's grounded and gritty, that it is spontaneous. It just was a bit unsatisfying. I don't know why. I like everything with a little person, but not the way we handled the clown here. I don't know. Something felt off.
I just don't remember enough about the lead up to that.
Yeah, I know. Remember the conversation.
Why did they even show up at his house? They had a bottle of booze. It was like they were mourning. So did somebody else die? I don't remember.
No.
They were there because his mom died, because he killed his mom.
Oh, that's right. No, right? Not did he kill his mom, but that his mom did die. That's right.
Well, yeah, but she died because he killed her. They just didn't know that he killed her.
You're right. That's what.
But I don't remember why he decided to kill him.
No, and that's kind of my problem with the scene.
Right.
Everything else I liked.
I just don't remember enough. I did like the stair scene where he's dancing down the stairs, because they showed like him laboring up those stairs, like walking up those stairs, and he comes dancing down in this scene there.
It's like the reverse Rocky.
It's the reverse Rocky, exactly.
Yeah, he's all confident.
Because actually what happens is if you play Eye of the Tiger backwards on vinyl, it's actually...
Rock and Roll Part 2?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got all the devil verses in and everything. It's actually a Kiss song called Dance with the Devil. You can only hear it if you play Eye of the Tiger backwards there, and you play it to this scene. It perfectly syncs up. Yeah. Good scene, because he looks so confident in that scene when he's coming down the stairs, and that felt right to me.
Yes. And it felt right to me too, and I think that could lead us into the conversation with when he's on Murray's show.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go there, let's talk about his mom and Thomas Wayne and this whole situation and potential trickery of him being Bruce Wayne's half-brother, all that kind of stuff, and his revelation of him being abused as a kid. So let's dive into those scenes. What did you think?
Oh, man, there's a lot here. I'll just say I really like, what's her name, who played his mom. She was the mom on 6 Feet Under, if anybody's watched that show. She's great. I think she's a terrific performer. She's a little pigeonholed because she can basically play the offbeat or crazy mom. That's fine. She does a great job at it. So she was great. They had great chemistry, those two. Like, it was like the perfect dysfunctional mom-son relationship living in that apartment there. So that's the first thing. Yeah, I was kind of into it when she was idolizing Thomas Wayne. We didn't know that she thought that he was baby daddy. So that worked really well for me. At first, we're like, oh, yeah, he's your dad. I kind of took it at face value at first, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it at first. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're in the Batman universe, and any way you cut it, you cannot extract one of these characters from the other. So if we're going to tie them together this way, then that's fine. I mean, they tied them together in Tim Burton's Batman, so that's okay. I wasn't sure to feel about it, and then it's not true, presumably not true. And then we get a hint that it might be true again when he's looking at the photos later on. Yeah. So I actually thought that worked. There's a lot of ambiguity in the movie, and sometimes ambiguity is your friend, sometimes it's not. And I felt like this was one of the ambiguous points that works well for the film. It potentially ties Bruce Wayne and Joker together in a very important way. And the fact that it's ambiguous works well, because if you want to extrapolate it out, then Batman could be like, this is a fantasy, and he'd be like, no, it's not. Like, that's a thing that could fight over. Like, that worked for me. I was good with that.
I'm happy that the movie, even though it's still somewhat ambiguous, gives the conclusion that they are not related, because I had the heebie-jeebies of Spectre.
Fair enough.
And I did not want to go down that path again. I don't like it. Again, we talk about making universes small and all that shit. I don't like that crap. So I'm very happy that, to me, it feels the movie made it somewhat solidified. That was just the mom was just hoping that was the case, because she was kind of hoping that if she could somehow prove, or maybe she was partially deranged, working for this rich man, she probably said, well, what happens if I had a relationship with him and he would take care of me and my son, or this boy that I adopted, and so on and so on. But she also was probably mentally ill and had some issues of her own. So I prefer that they're not related, because just from a Batman universe perspective, I don't like it. In the context of this movie, it could work either way. If it was a one-off and we're never going to explore any of this again. However, if the eventuality would be that this character is the Joker and goes on and Batman is now formed, I prefer that the Joker's actions and this support of the Joker, as ill-advised as it is, led to the creation of Batman, which is also stemming from society's problems. And Batman probably doesn't even know his father seems to be one of the culprits for creating some of these problems, instead of being the beacon of hope and a potential solution. And he was, ironically, by a premature death, he is now one of the causes of society's ill wills. So I think that's interesting. How about you talk about Thomas Wayne himself and this interpretation of this character being more like a Donald Trumpish type of character that his family probably doesn't realize that he is.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought that was refreshing. It raises some questions that, unfortunately, I guess the problem with it is that it was almost too interesting for its own good. And what I mean by that is, okay, this guy who's a dick, the 1%, he doesn't think much of the poor, struggling people. He says he does, but he isn't actually. We know that. He doesn't care.
He's just, he's like a politician, and he's even running for office.
He's running for mayor, yeah, exactly. He gets gunned down, not by a random mugger who's desperate, whether it's a traditional story in the comic books or, say, in Batman Begins, when the guy was desperate. I shot him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry about it. I didn't mean to do it. That's not what happened here, because the guy's wearing a clown mask, who's part of the protests. He recognizes Thomas Wayne.
That's right.
Follows him to the alley.
Shooting. Yeah.
It was targeted. He's like, "Hey, Wayne," and says something. What did he say? I don't remember what he said, but he's like,
he says, "This is for you, or
what
whatever.
You deserve, or something," right?
Deserve, yeah.
Shoots him. So what Batman does that create? It's not a result of a random mugging. That's a result of, I guess, what we call class warfare. So
Well,
what
this is
Batman
interesting. Yeah.
does
And
that create?
That's a very interesting question, and I think that is a fantastic topic to explore.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see that potential Elseworlds Batman on what that could do to his psyche. Is he more like Batfleck? To me, this is almost like, as we said, the prequel for Batfleck.
Yeah.
The man's a murderer. Batfleck's a murderer.
I mean, Bat Keaton was a murderer too.
Well, in a different sense. Context and tone, it's different. You could say about the Joker, and I think in Batman Returns, he
murders that clown in the street. He drops that grenade down the guy's dick.
Yeah.
But he also...
Contextually, it's okay, though. So it's
No. But he also murders those guys in Axis Chemicals when he bombs the place with the Batmobile at the end. He drops those grenades right between the guy's dick. Remember? At the end? When he drives the Batmobile and remote, and then, the bombs come out from the wheels.
Maybe he doesn't know. I don't know. Maybe there's no cameras there. Maybe he doesn't know that those guys are right there.
Right. He has machine guns and bombs on that Batmobile as non-lethal weapons, and definitely that entire factory filled with toxic chemicals that the Joker is churning out on an assembly line definitely doesn't have people in it. Well, for sure not. No, definitely not.
Tonality is two different things. But anyways.
Well, it doesn't matter tonality. Murder is murder. What tone you want to take, this he kills motherfuckers in those movies. In all those movies, he kills people. I don't know if George Clooney killed people, but Val Kilmer killed some motherfuckers, and Michael Keaton definitely killed people.
George Clooney killed the audience.
Yes, he did.
So that was more of a mass murder.
I feel like Joel Schumacher killed the audience, but George held them down while he did it.
Willingly.
Crystal Nolan teabagged them while it happened.
But I think it's a great question and a topic that, to me, desperately needs exploring. Because, yes, the interesting question here about Thomas Wayne is that from Bruce's perspective, he thinks his dad is a saint.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, who would just be gunned down by a random sense of violence, right? And maybe he'll end up being the same Batman. However, being that the world's greatest detective should find out eventually that his dad was a mofo and 1% mofo and probably would detest him instead of honor him.
Because he also himself be part of the 1%, right?
See, I don't mind people who are part of the 1% who actually do good. So Bruce Wayne's the exception. Right. You might get a different Batman out of this, and I would love for that to be explored.
I would too, and I think that one of my problems with the film is that we won't... If you remember after Man of Steel came out and you were really critical of just the rampant wanton destruction that they caused to Metropolis, and you're like, Superman wouldn't do that.
And I wanted it explored, yeah.
You wanted it explored, and you're like, if it could be explored, then that could give this movie some context, right?
That's right.
You remember that. I feel the same way about this. If we see who that Batman is, and he faces off against this Joker, then I feel like this movie completes itself. But I'm pretty sure we're never going to see that.
No. So you might not see Batman versus Joker, but if there's a sequel, you might get some exploration into Bruce's psyche.
Like in a
Joker sequel. You never know. But we're assuming that there is no sequel, so...
I'm assuming there's no sequel.
Yes.
Because they've said that they don't want to do one. And I know it's been wildly successful, so that can change. But it also feels like it's a movie that, I don't know. If they do it, I'll go watch it. And I kind of want to see, but it feels wildly incomplete to me. It feels like half of an idea right now, and I'm struggling with that.
I understand, but this movie's not really, even though Batman technically is impacted by these events, like Bruce Wayne, it's not about him.
No,
so
it's not.
I can let that go. I think Bruce Wayne was literally in the movie for all of 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Didn't have a line. Did he even talk?
No, didn't even talk.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm okay with it being the way it is. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this movie, I love this movie completely focused on Arthur, and I like that.
Let me ask you a question, though. Let's take a hypothetical Batman movie, and he doesn't put on the suit until 10 minutes towards the end and punches one guy in the face, and then the movie's over. I'm just trying to create a counterpoint, because we've taken this character out. He doesn't fight Batman or anybody. Joker doesn't face off against anybody. The only person he faces off against is some talk show host and a clown that he used to work with, and his mom, I guess. So flip the script. Let's say this is a Batman origin story, and he goes to Nepal, and he fights Liam Neeson with the sword, which is fucking awesome, by the way, and then comes back to Gotham City and maybe meets Commissioner Gordon and puts him like the ski mask on, and then puts on the bat suit, gets the cowl and everything, and like punches Scarecrow in the face, and then the movie ended.
Yeah, it would not be satisfying enough.
No, I'd be like, well, what the fuck is that? What happened here? That would be incomplete to me. And I feel like this movie, I know that it focuses on Arthur and it's the Joker origin story. And I'm great. That's fine. I dig it. I'm just using Batman Begins as an example because we see the whole arc of the Batman origin story in Batman Begins, I would say. He's a kid. We see when he's a kid, his relationship with his dad. Also, just as an aside, Martha Wayne is a fucking throwaway character in every version of the Batman origin story. She has like one line ever in anything, which I think is interesting. She's basically a pearl necklace holder is what she is in the Batman origin story in every case. But anyway, we see him as a kid. We see all of that. We see him not fit in Gotham City, goes off to wherever, Asia, I guess, all around the world, does all that, learns some martial arts, fights Ra's al Ghul, fights fucking Liam Neeson with a samurai sword in the glacier, is fucking great, blows up a monastery, kills a bunch of ninjas, comes back home, figures out the mob, he gets a bat suit, gets a fucking tank, fights Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. It focuses on his total origin story, but it's complete. And this we get Arthur Fleck is crazy, gets a little crazier, gets a little crazier, gets a little crazier, puts up some makeup, movie's over.
I don't think it's as simple as that, and I think we can talk about that maybe at the end.
I'm just like, why did they feel the need? Like, you don't pull Batman out of context of what he's fighting for, but I don't see what the Joker's fighting for here. And it's hard for me, I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but I don't know that it was successfully achieved here to pull him out. And they didn't pull him out of the Batman universe. Still Gotham City. The Waynes are still there. Wayne still get killed in front of Bruce. So presumably there's going to be a Batman, but not for another, we'll say generously 15 years when Arthur's going to be an old man. Like he's 40 at least in this movie. So we get a 60-year-old Joker fighting Batman. Like why? I don't understand why they decided to pull him out in this way. In this way that they did it, he will basically never really be a foil for Batman.
I mean, this goes back to what we talked about. I mean, then it feels like a one-off, or I brought up that possibility that this inspires somebody else to be the Joker.
But then why is the movie about that guy?
Good question.
Wouldn't that make more sense? Basically, what we're saying is like, well, the Joker's not interesting, but here's the guy who inspired the Joker. Like, all right, well, so you're saying the Joker's just a fucking asshole then? He's just a loser? No, I mean, if they're going to make a movie about the guy who's inspired by Joaquin Phoenix.
That's okay. So then maybe even if this is the Joker, which is fine, then yeah, that's maybe is a mistake that Bruce was depicted too young at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know. And maybe they could have done a different, as I said, it feels like a spin-off elsewhere standalone thing where maybe Bruce Wayne could have been a bit older and his parents died.
Mm-hmm.
And that may have been refreshing and interesting instead of him being so young like traditionally for the shooting. And that could have played into a different part of Bruce's psyche, too. Maybe he's a teenager, and he still froze and did jack shit. Maybe 15 years old. But anyways, I don't think that's really the focus of the movie. So, again, I'm not hanging my problem on that. You mentioned the point that you feel like the movie leaves you wanting more, and it feels a bit unfinished, and I can partially agree with that sentiment.
Okay. I don't understand. You remember that Halle Berry Catwoman movie that came out whenever? Right?
No. I remember the trailer. I'd never seen it.
No, but I've never seen it either. But you know that it exists.
I know that it exists, and it's apparently
so the movie's called Catwoman, and it's called Catwoman, and it stars Halle Berry, and the movie doesn't take place in Gotham City, and the character's not Selena Kyle. It doesn't have anything to do with Batman. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just about a woman who might be a thief, and she's dressed up as a cat for some fucking reason. What the fuck is the point? If you're going to make the movie about that character, why don't you make it about that character and embrace everything that makes that character instead of saying, well, we don't need that, we're going to do our own thing. Now, that might not be a fair comparison because that movie was dog shit and they completely rejected everything that made that character. But you're going to say, okay, we're going to make a movie with Joker. There's a lot of cultural baggage that comes with that because that, in my opinion, if you're talking about pop culture antagonists, pop culture villains, there are two names, Darth Vader and Joker. And that's it, man. Who the fuck else? There's nobody, right? So, okay, we're doing Joker. Then that means that you are embracing all of the baggage that comes with that character. Otherwise, if you're not embracing all of that, then why use that character? Using Joker because you want to explore Joker. So if you're exploring Joker, and I fully embrace doing different takes and different interpretations, but you've got a line where you go over it, then you don't need to use that character. Just do a different movie. Like if you're doing Taxi Driver in the DC universe, which is basically what they're doing here, only Taxi Driver's a better movie, then why are you using Joker? Why don't you just do somebody else? Like just do your own thing. And if it's just because the movie's not going to be made, which is a rumor that I heard, and I don't know that it's true, that he wanted to just do this movie and it wasn't going to get made. So he's like, well, let's just do a superhero movie and make a Joker. Then make a Joker. Don't make it the guy who inspired the Joker. Don't make it a guy who's dreaming in his head that he's going to be the Joker, which is another rumor I've heard, which is fucking bullshit. So fuck you. Why not make it the Joker?
Most likely it is the Joker. I'm just giving you an alternative.
But the Joker is Batman's antagonist. Like, he's the prime antagonist to Batman. And if you're not making him that, then who the fuck is this guy?
Snoke.
What?
He's Snoke.
Snoke, yeah.
At least you get some backstory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Didn't get cut in half. But, like, okay, look at it this way. So forget about good and evil just for a second, because I don't give a shit about that. Batman represents order, and Joker has always represented chaos. And there's a lot you can do with that. And in today's political and social climate, like Batman, all of the superheroes are fucking fascists, man. They think the law doesn't apply to them. They think that they can do whatever they want because it's for the greater good. They don't care about due process. They don't care about privacy. They don't care about individual rights. They care about, I don't know what, punching criminals in the face? Stopping human trafficking? I don't know. But whatever they think their motives are, they think they're good and just. And it's like the police nowadays. It's like they don't give a shit about the rules. They think the system is broken. And this is where the superheroes come from. The system is broken, so we have to work outside the system to bring justice. Because their core tenet is we can't have justice in this system of laws. So the law is injustice. So they work outside of that. And I'm sorry, that's bullshit. So we only have justice because there's a law. The law protects us, people, you and me, the lower class. The law protects us from the state, from oppressing us. And that's the idea of laws, and they don't always work. So Batman's about law and order. He's a fascist. Or you could at least portray him as that, because he doesn't follow the law. He just punches people without due process.
Yeah.
He does all of that shit. The Joker is there as the counterpoint to that. He's there as chaos. And he's always portrayed as a villain, which makes sense because he's a sociopath and a psychopath. But you could have an evil character who has that at his core, and that's where the chaos can come from. And there's none of that there. He's just probably crazy. That's why before I had a problem, like, what mental illness does he have? He's insane in some abstract manner that I don't understand. And he doesn't fight for anything, doesn't fight for the common man. All he fights for is the fact that this guy made fun of him on TV, so went on his show and shot him in the face. And he had no plan. There was no greater purpose to that. He was just a child. And when he goes on Murray's show at the end, in the full makeup, in the getup and all that, he sounds exactly the same. Still sounds like a child, and he's not for anything. There's this movement behind him that's like, yeah, fuck the rich. And he didn't give a shit about any of that. He cared only about that he was made fun of on TV, and he wanted to be someone, but he still was a child on that show. And that really fucking bothered me. And I know I got on this huge fucking diatribe. I don't even remember where we started. So
the only counter I'll have to that is, while I agree with you, and I think that would be one criticism of the movie, is the message is a little muddled in terms of Joker's agency here. But there are a couple of scenes where he talks about people are listening, and then his rant on Murray's shows about the lower class being abandoned and forgotten, and this is what you get for abandoning us. While I like the rant in terms of the wording, because I don't agree with the action of killing somebody for it, but you feel that pain and you have that sympathy. But I think that the Joker's motivations are kind of all over the map.
Mm-hmm.
But in a normal movie, that's a problem. With the Joker in a Joker movie, is that a problem? And I think that's the question I have for you.
Yeah, well,
because his mind isn't. Yeah. We're talking about Joker, and if this is the Joker, which we're led to believe, and if he's chaos, his mind is chaos. There's a scene of him in the protest kind of being happy about it. There's a scene of him watching a guy in a clown mask in a car being arrested and carried away, but he's happy about it because he's saying, "Oh, people are like me. I'm starting something here." Then he's confronting Thomas Wayne. There's two things here about him saying, "Are you my father? Acknowledge me," but also the acknowledgement is not just about having a father figure, which is still a message because he's imagining Murray in his fantasy of being a father figure.
Yeah.
But it's also about acknowledge me as a lower class citizen. I am completely abandoned by everyone, family, friends, society, everything. He's lashing out. And he's trying to get help. And even the help through his social programs is now abandoning him. He's lost. So that's where I come from. The message, it can have multiple different meanings. And it could be muddled as one interpretation. But because it's the Joker, and just like you go back to Heath Ledger, and one of the best things I liked about Heath Ledger and his performance in that story is the multiple origin stories that he's telling everybody. And you have that built into the movie here as well. And that I like.
You know what I think would have made a profound difference in the whole film, especially in the conclusion, is when he goes on Murray's show. If just his tone had changed from what I said was petulant child, like we saw him when he transforms into the Joker, and it seems like he has that confidence when he's dancing down the stairs.
And on the subway.
Right. Exactly.
Because he was walking with confidence, taking those hits off his cigarette there. He looked like a man on a mission.
Yeah.
He knew who he was. He knew what his destiny was. And I agree with you 100%. He gets on the show, and I love his entrance. When he enters, he's doing the scene in the trailer and in the movie. He has that little dance at the back. He's getting ready for his entrance. When he actually does enter, he does a confident spin. But then, he goes back to that childlike...
Yeah, he just won.
And I didn't like that either.
And that murdered me, man. I was like, fuck. If he'd just been the Joker, the confident, that would have been a huge difference there. Like, that would have turned this movie into a masterpiece.
See, from a dramatic perspective, I agree with you, but I'm trying to look at it from Joaquin Phoenix probably had most of the say here, right?
I know, and that's why it hurts me to say. I was like, nah.
No, but he's coming from a guy who's saying this guy, he's not right. So now he's back in front of an audience again. He's all over the map. He's confident. Then he goes back to his nervous Nelly self, like the kid aspect you're talking about, whiny part. And then he goes into his rant about, oh, here's justice. Society forgot about me. This is what you fucking get. Boom. So you got three kind of different parts there.
Sure.
But maybe that's part of someone who's going through this, whether it's grounded and real or that's his interpretation of who the Joker is. Because the Joker is so chaotic, his mind can't be balanced in one way. I think I agree with you. I would prefer the more confident route, and he's now a different entity. But because he's still hurting and messed and broken, I can see these multiple different, I wouldn't say multiple personalities, but he's still not all right.
No, he's not. And I agree. A lot of this is probably Joaquin Phoenix's choice in the performance. And I think that might be a symptom of what I think one of the problems with this film is that it's not sure about its own ambiguity. Let me tell you what I mean. So the movie has ambiguity built into it. There are parts of it that are ambiguous. And that just on a high level fits with the character. As you said, there's the multiple origins of the Joker. The comic book incarnation of the Joker has that built in. So if you're going to tell an origin story of the Joker, it makes sense to build ambiguity into your whole film, both from a narrative perspective, stylistic perspective. I'm all right with that as a concept. Problem is that I don't get the impression that the filmmakers, Todd Phillips down, while Todd Phillips and his co-writer, I don't remember the name of, had a clear picture of the ambiguity. I think they deliberately made it ambiguous, but without an actual answer that they were making the movie from. So that we're asking the questions, and they're like, oh, sure, you could interpret it that way. We don't know. Well, if you don't know, well, then how did you make the fucking movie? What choices did you make? Like, you can have it deliberately ambiguous scenes in a movie or messages, but if you're not making it from a central purpose, then you just have muddled messages where somebody like me comes in and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this movie's about. I'll give you an example of how this is done correctly, in my opinion. If you watch Inception, the end of the movie, people talk about, was it a dream or was it real? The last scene, and he's got that spinning top that he uses as his tool, right, to tell him if it's a dream or not. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of misdirection there because he goes in the end and he sees his kids and he throws the top down, to see if it's a dream or not. Then he sees his kids and then he leaves the top. He goes outside to see his kids and he doesn't actually watch the top spin. And the movie ends on the spinning top. And it sort of imperceptibly wobbles at the end to indicate that maybe it was real, but I've watched it again and again, and it's like you can't really see it. But the point is that there are clues in the film and they made the film with the answer in mind so that like you could decode it. You can talk about it in different ways and why it means different things, but I feel like this movie has those ambiguous shit to it that they don't have a core meaning to that you can't decode. And the reason you can't decode it is because there is no answer, because they didn't film it with an answer, which I think is fucking bullshit. Like, that's just cheating. Like, we're just going to make it ambiguous and you go into, like, what's the story you're trying to tell then if you're just doing that? Then you just turn the camera on. And thank God you got a good actor. Because if you got a above average actor, this movie doesn't work.
I hear what you're saying. I can get on board with some of that. My forgivings on this is because, as I said, it's the Joker, can accept a lot of that ambiguity, even if the writers and the directors don't really have that answer themselves. I understand that you want a bit of more of a through line to kind of help decipher the intent, and here's the evidence, blah, 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 blah. I get it.
Right. But I feel like you and I can't argue either way. Like, we're just like, oh, it's ambiguous. Can. Well, all right. Well, what the fuck then? Give me something in either direction then. Like, but you and I can't really argue either point.
And I can agree with that. But funny thing is, because it's the Joker, I can let it go.
I could live with that too, except that this isn't really the Joker. Like, he doesn't bear any resemblance other than the fucking face paint to the character that we know.
But it's a different interpretation of him.
And I'm okay with that. But even a different interpretation, like, you're still using the Joker. So there has to be something recognizable here outside of face paint, doesn't there? Like, you don't just throw a guy in a bat costume and say he's Batman.
I just think that because these are the beginning of that character, it's a bit unfair to judge. Now, I look at it something like this where the Killing Joke origin story where he's just this poor stand-up comic, he can't feed his family, then he gets set up by these idiots who are trying to rob this, fucking factory, put that shitty thing on his head, he can't fucking see, falls into a vat of chemicals, and out pops the Joker, and he's gone completely mad. And that story is applauded.
And it shouldn't be, actually.
And it shouldn't be. It's not deep.
No.
It's as deep as Jack Nicholson's origin story as the Joker.
Well, with Jack Nicholson's Joker, he has the benefit of being counterpoint to Batman, which is kind of the point of the character.
I hear you. It's not what this movie is about.
No, it's not.
They could explore it in a future movie.
That's why I say, like, it feels incomplete.
But he's a counterpoint to society's problems. He's a counter to Thomas Wayne and the 1%, and he's a consequence of that. That's what they're trying to say here, even if it's muddled.
I agree that is one of the messages that they're trying to portray, but most of the antagonism isn't Thomas Wayne. That's why the subway scene is so great.
But it's not just Thomas Wayne. It's everything, man. It's everything. It's all of life. And that's why he has that line. And I love the way the line was done in the trailer.
Which line, sorry? Which line?
I thought my life was a tragedy, but it's actually a comedy.
I love that line. That's a good line.
Great line. I think that would have been great if he said that to Murray.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that would have had more punch there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just kind of the whole point here. In a similar vein that just takes one bad day for the Joker. All it took is one bad day, and that's why he's trying to break the bat over and over again. He's going to try and keep giving him that one bad day. And then Batman's finally going to break his fucking rule of killing him. He'll finally kill him and prove the Joker right. And that's the beauty of Batman. He never gives in.
Yeah, but that's not here.
Essentially.
That's not here. He didn't have one bad day. He had many bad days and a bad childhood and an abusive boyfriend.
Yes.
His mom's boyfriend was
But that's the point, is that Phillips and Phoenix and the writers, is that they're grounding it in the sense of realism, saying it isn't a bad day. This is a course of a whole bunch of shit eating away at somebody over life. And that's where he comes from. I thought my life was a tragedy, but it's a comedy. I can see someone who, over the course of decades, and he finally gets that joke, because he's probably omitted this from his mind of him being abused as a kid that way, right? In that horrific manner. And then it all comes back to him, even though they don't have a flashback of him remembering anything, but you can imagine that he finally realizes that, and that's not his mom, biological mother. This whole fucking thing has been a farce.
Yeah.
And that's what he gives up. And I think that's another valid interpretation of someone who could be the Joker.
Did they really take a stance against the 1%? Because everybody who was oppressed was kind of a dickhead too. So I don't know. I think they would have been better served to like make a stronger statement about how society could create somebody like this.
I think that's a shortcoming in the movie.
Well, we can agree on that. Okay, well, let's talk about Robert De Niro, not an insignificant person to throw into this role. So let's talk about De Niro, and let's also talk about how the De Niro scenes play out. So both the introduction of Arthur into the show and their interaction on the show.
I think De Niro's a fantastic actor, but I'll be honest with you, I always find him a bit of a douchebag. Like, he comes across as a giant douche. I'm not the biggest fan of his, mainly because of that, even though I think the man can act. I like the scenes. I think he's serviceable in this role. I think he definitely signed up for it because of the similarity King of Comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was appealing to him. I don't have much to say, unfortunately. It was such a small part for him. I mean, I did enjoy him when he was on the screen, but I was left wanting a bit more there. Like, I was kind of siding with how he was, I wouldn't say attacking, but challenging Arthur when Arthur admitted doing those killings. I think as a show host, you're kind of live show, you're kind of put in a tough spot there. What are you going to do? Yell up and say, you motherfucker, call the cops? You got a whole bunch of studio audience in front of you. So I thought he played it like a cool cat there, appropriately. And then got a bullet, and he played that well.
Yeah.
So,
ate that bullet like a pro.
Yeah, he ate a bullet like a pro. I don't really have much more to add.
When Arthur's backstage, he puts on the clown makeup, and Murray comes back, and he's got the gear on, and he's like, so I'm going to come out, introduce me as Joker. Should you buy that? Then he'd be like, all right, whatever, it's fine.
But didn't he also say that you called me Joker already?
Well, you called me that. Okay, but he's wearing the makeup. He's got the purple suit on.
I'll be honest, I buy it because it's show business. Because Murray's going to make fun of this guy anyways. That's his intent.
Yeah.
So he's going to probably do Arthur this one solid and say, oh, fine, you want to be called Joker? I don't give a fuck. I'm still going to make fun of you anyways. I was okay with that. Fine. I just felt that I wanted more in their interaction once Arthur got on stage. You know what I thought, honestly? I thought, because of the trailer, you obviously knew from the trailer he was going to eventually go on that show. My initial instinct was he was going to wipe out the entire audience, including Murray.
With some laughing gas, that would have been...
Yeah, but then that's, prime Joker. This is pre-prime, so...
Well, yeah, no, I didn't have that thought, but actually that might have worked, really. That would have been extraordinarily violent, but that would have fit.
But then I also think that would have had even more of a problem with the violence and the subtext there, and
that would have been
people's concerns. Yeah. Like, you do that, you're opening up a huge can of worms.
Right, exactly. Especially with people watching that movie in a theater.
Yeah, and then also with what happened during Dark Knight Rises, there was that sensitivity because the guy who said, oh, I'm the Joker, and he shot up that one theater.
Right. So here's what I think. I didn't buy it. I was just like, comes backstage. It's like he didn't care. He's like, oh, you want to go out in this makeup? Oh, I'll call you Joker. Oh, yeah, that's what you called me. Okay, fine. It's whatever. I didn't really buy that. I think De Niro was, okay, I'm going to say it. I think De Niro's overrated. He plays the same character in every movie. He basically plays a fucking mobster in every movie he's ever been in, even when he's not a mobster. You just look at him. This guy's a criminal. He doesn't have anything else. Like, he's not a great actor. He's Robert De Niro. It's like Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's good in the movies he's in, but he doesn't play anything. He's Harrison Ford. He doesn't play anything other than that. So fuck Robert De Niro and his fucking acting skill. Fuck him. He's Robert De Niro. All he does is be Robert De Niro. That's it.
Maybe he should have just said to Arthur, you wanted to be a comedian, but you blew it. Then he gets popped.
Right. Exactly. Robert De Niro in every fucking movie he's in. So good for you, Robert De Niro. Woefully miscast role. I know that they used Taxi Driver and King of Comedy and, I don't know, Meet the Parents. I'm just joking. You know what they should have with Robert De Niro? They should have made him one of the clowns. You should have made him the guy that he murdered. Clown. That would have been great.
Yeah, you should have done that.
You know who they should have had as a talk show host? Could you imagine if they cast like Jay Leno?
Oh, man.
Or David Letterman in that role?
Yeah, Letterman.
And then he shoots him in the face?
Well, especially that would have been funny because of Joaquin Phoenix. He went on Letterman that one time and he was all spaced out on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have had Letterman. You break the fourth wall more by that, but...
Can you imagine
what you're saying?
Come on. But even just an actor, like any comedian that kind of has that ability to be a talk show host, Robert De Niro as a talk show host, didn't work at all. It's so jarring. And it puts me off so much. It doesn't buy. And so when he gets shot, I'm like, that's fine. I'm fine with that. Didn't hit me in the balls like it was supposed to.
Well, I mean, I don't hate this scene as much as you do. I think the scene is still effective, but I agree that it could be strengthened. And I do agree with your criticism that I think Phoenix could have done something a bit different here instead of reverting back to those childish mannerisms that he had, even though I can buy some of the logic behind it if he's still nervous. But yeah, I agree. I think I would have preferred the more confident aspect to it that we saw after he murdered that clown in his apartment. And that transformation should have stuck and stayed. And I agree. I think a better actor other than De Niro would have helped things here. But there wasn't enough for him to do that I can't fault him, really.
I think more appropriate actor, though. Like more
but even if I have fucking Gary Oldman here or whoever else, doesn't matter. There's not enough meat to the story that was presented here that it would have been any more effective, in my opinion.
Because we don't want to be here all week long to the podcast. But you brought up a couple pieces earlier, and this is, I think, our chance to bring up all of the things that we said we're going to talk about later. The aspect of the unreliable narrator. We know that he imagined, either on purpose or just by delusion, his relationship, and I've heard different interpretations online of how much he's made up in his mind and not. So let's talk about that a little bit. What's your take on the unreliable narrator and what aspects of this movie, with the understanding that none of it actually happened because it's a fucking movie, what actually happened and did not?
We are told to interpret it as that the relationship was not real. Obviously, like the obvious fantasies of him going on the show, being a good stand-up comic and things working and going on those dates, those were all fantasy. What was real was him going into the apartment with the would-be girlfriend, but she called him out and said, "Who the fuck are you?" "Oh, you're the guy down the hall, get out." That's real. And I think everything else is real, even though I can listen to an argument and I'm open for an interpretation that the rest of the movie's in his head. Because there's also the movement that they're saying is in his head. Because after he kills Murray, he goes out, is being arrested, gets rescued by that car accident on purpose, stands in front of all the, the protesters, revolters wearing all the masks, and puts on a happy face in blood. That could also be in his head. I think he actually kills Murray. He actually kills the clown. That's the one where I'm not 100% sure. And the other one at the end where he might have killed that one nurse or psychologist, and he had the red tracks, which could signify blood. Maybe that's in his head. So those scenes I'm open for interpretation, can go either way. But I do think he does kill Murray and does kill the clown.
Yeah, I will mostly agree. It's all real. And anybody who says it's all in his head can go fuck themselves. Except for the obvious part that's in his head, which is the relationship with the girl and his fantasy of being on Murray's show. There's no indication that anything else is it. Nothing else. There's no indication that it's in his head. So if you want to have that interpretation, you're an idiot. So we'll just say that right now.
Well, I agree with you. I think everything else is real except for the obvious there. But I am open.
I'm not open to it because there's no evidence for it.
I could listen to someone argue.
Well, I've listened to people argue and nobody has any evidence for it.
So then I haven't heard an argument. So I'm just saying.
I've read about it and I was just like, what are you talking about? There's no evidence for that. They just like, well, this other thing was in his head, so everything is in his head. That's the argument. You're an asshole if you think that. So I'm glad we agree with that on that. Anyway, so here's the question I have for you. I feel like we need to be in the wrap-up session here. Here's my central question. What the fuck was this point of this movie? Who's this movie? What the fuck was the point? That's what I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand why this movie exists or who it's for. My question, and I pose it to you.
Good question. I'm not 100% sure I can get a satisfying answer at this time. I probably need to watch it again to dive into it and to remember aspects of this. The point of this movie, it was completely driven as a character study. There's no way that a guy like Joaquin Phoenix would be even remotely interested in doing a generic superhero movie. Oh, here, I'm going to do an origin tale of the Joker and set it up so I can fight Batman. I'm sure that was not interesting to him.
Yeah.
So definitely from way Phillips probably wrote this movie and pitched this movie and got Phoenix to sign on for this, it was a complete character study of the Joker and their interpretation of the Joker. And he wanted to make it gritty. He wanted to make it grounded, like it could happen in real life. We can argue to the success of the execution of that, but I think that was the point of the movie. You're asking me, what is the point? It was to examine what could have made the Joker. What are the sequence of events that could have happened? And we talk about Killing Joke being an inspiration. I mean, that was just one fucking bad trip, and that's accepted as Joker lore. So you're going to say there's no point of this movie? I would probably counter that in saying that was the point. Character study, and it wasn't one bad day. It was a bad life and society's pressures that drove someone who was susceptible for having some problems to begin with over the edge to become a villain. now supervillain or chaotic villain, or how true to the agent of chaos and the clown prince of crime. I don't think that was their goal. It's got to match this and that and Jack and Heath and Mark Hamill or whoever else. It doesn't have to match any of those versions. It's just the lead up to what could be this person. And that was the interesting aspect for them to investigate. So that was the point. And I'm okay with that.
Okay. I struggle a lot with this film because I can't answer the question of why it exists and who it's for. And we're pulling him out of all of the context of that, and we're giving him his own story. That's what happens. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it Joker. We wouldn't put it in Gotham City. So they made a conscious choice to invert the causality here. It's always been that Batman makes the Joker. The Joker emerges as a response to Batman. And this is the reverse, is that presumably Batman emerges as a consequence of the Joker. Again, that's okay. You can do that. That's fine. My issues here are, if you're going to do that, if you're going to pull him out of being a foil for Batman in any sense, then what else is happening here? Like, why are we talking about the Joker? And that's why I felt like, as I said before, it feels incomplete. He's not fighting anybody other than this ambiguous society that has, I guess, beat him down. And we only get hints of that. He doesn't rail against society. He only really rails against this asshole on TV who made fun of him. He doesn't rail against the fact that he's lost his health care. I'm wondering, like, why did they make a movie about a guy who was always going to be bad, and society's bad, and the poor people are bad, and the rich people are bad, and everything's bad? So here's a world that's really bad, everybody. Enjoy. Is that a character study? Why do I need a character study about a person who couldn't possibly exist? That doesn't amplify anything that's wrong with society. That just shows me that all of society is awful. There's nobody who's doing good. There's no good. I just don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand why. Maybe that's my feeling. I just don't understand why the fuck this movie exists.
I disagree that you say this character cannot exist, because...
But he can't. He doesn't.
No, the Joker doesn't exist, but people... this version of the Joker, he is not a mass murderer. He's not a...
But he's not the Joker. So he's not the Joker. So why is it the Joker?
But it's a different version of the Joker.
But it's not really. He's not really the first. He's not a version of anything. You agree with me, right? Like, they are peddling in Joker currency here. Are they not? Yes? It's called Joker. It takes place in Gotham City. Thomas Wayne is Bruce Wayne's a character. It's the Joker. You can't be like, well, it's kind of sort of that. No, it's not Joker then. So to have that movie, you got to have Joker. So he's Joker. You got to, like, own that. And they don't own that. They're like, well, maybe he's Joker. Maybe he's the guy who inspires Joker. And maybe it was all in his head. Maybe it wasn't. Fuck you, man. Fucking make a choice. You know what would have been fucking awesome? Have Joaquin Phoenix have this whole movie. Not this whole movie, but have large parts of this movie. And he turns into Joker, maybe a little earlier into the movie. And then some asshole in a goddamn batsuit just comes out of nowhere and punches him in the face and foils all of his plans. It's like, who's this fascist asshole who just comes out of nowhere and is punching innocent people on the street without due process? Fuck that guy. And I'm going to do this other shit to, like, show that we're not going to be oppressed by some lunatic in a batsuit.
I completely understand exactly what you're saying. You're looking for a bit more of a connection to the actual lore of who the Joker is and his relationship with Batman. That could have been one way of approaching it, for sure. The problem when you do that is that when you introduce Batman into the mix, and maybe a more interesting script is Batman exists, but he's never in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he never crosses paths with the Joker, and that could have been one aspect to it, for sure. But I think when you have Batman there, the audience would expect Batman to show. And I think that's why the filmmakers went with a origin story, and that's what really enticed Phoenix.
I know that that's not the intent of the movie, but you can't escape it. Then why did they use this character then? I guess that's the question. If you're going to divorce it, if you're just going to get rid of everything else, why are you using this character?
And now you maybe understand why I have a problem with The Last Jedi. Why the fuck are you using that character if that's what you're going to do with it? What the fuck?
Well,
anyways, similar story.
All right, no, but fair enough though, right? Like, why are you using that character then?
I'm not arguing against your opinion. I agree that I would rather see the story that you are suggesting. All I'm saying is the movie that's presented here, unlike The Last Jedi, if they're going to do something that's so disconnected from the lore, then they have free reign. Why can't it be something else?
If you're using a character that already exists, like, what are you doing? What's the fucking point? As much as Jared Leto's Joker sucks and that movie's a piece of garbage, Suicide Squad, I find that they gave it a shot. Like, I'm all right, because it's still Joker. It just sucked. But, I mean, it didn't suck because they did something different. It sucked because it sucked, if that makes sense. Like, the movie sucked.
I do have one last question for you.
Okay, yes.
Before maybe when we wrap up final thoughts, which I'm assuming is approaching pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
The controversy surrounding all the violence.
Mm-hmm.
Is warranted or unwarranted?
Unwarranted.
Yeah.
Unwarranted. Totally.
100%.
Yeah. If you think this movie is controversial or incites violence or any of that shit, you obviously have never watched movies before. You've never watched Taxi Driver, which this movie is largely based on or inspired by. You've never watched Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs or any of the other number of movies that have criminals as their main characters. So if you think this movie is a problem, you can go fuck yourself. This movie is not a problem.
Agreed 100%. And then that's why I was thinking, with all the controversy, I thought when he went on that show, more shit was going to go down. Yeah, and I thought that would be the controversy.
Listen, if you identify with this guy, you are already going to do something.
Yeah, if this guy's your hero and you support every action, I mean, you can sympathize with the character. I'll really admit that. I felt empathetic and I felt sympathy towards Arthur at different scenes in the movie. But at no point in time did I ever condone violence. No. Except for the self-defense of two of those guys in the subway.
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't portray it as that way. I'll give this movie credit for that one of the things they did really right is making the violence very unpalatable and uncomfortable in the sense that, like, you don't watch it and be like, you watch it. Even the Wall Street guys are like, all right, well, those two guys had it coming, but still. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't cheering for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Shit, man. So I guess we'll wrap it up. Well, give me your final thoughts. Give me your wrap-ups. And, I mean, recommendation, obviously, and we can do a rare antiquity on it. So
yeah, we try and label, even if it's just a new release, we try and give it that stamp if it is a rare antiquity or not. I can't say for sure. I need time to sit on this one. I do recommend this film. I think it's a high recommend for me. The one thing that kind of leads me to that is I find it rare that I really want to watch a movie again so quickly. I've only seen the movie once, but this movie did fascinate me when I did watch it. I enjoyed it. I thought the performances are excellent. They're amazing, which I think is the one thing we can agree on. I like some of the messages, even if they are muddled. So that's the one criticism of the movie is what really drives him over the edge, Arthur here, to become the Joker. And as you have pointed out, Geoff, is the story really worthy of a Joker story? Why call it Joker? What was the point? I look at the point, as I said, it's a character study. And I can appreciate that because it's refreshing. And I think there's some layers to what's driving him and the pressures that's forcing him down this dark path that I appreciate in a movie like this, especially when we're talking about an offshoot of the superhero genre. You're taking a superhero character, and as we have mentioned, it's a character that has unknown, unfixed. It's not a black and white origin story in the comics, so it's open for a different interpretation, and I appreciate that. So it's a high recommend from me. I am not going to give it a rare antiquity just yet, so I'll say no, because there are some flaws. I didn't like the third act there where he is on Murray's show. I wanted more there, as I talked about. And I agree with you, Geoff. There's a bit missing there. It fumbles that key aspect to the movie. The movie hinges on that quite a bit. Not enough for me not to recommend it, but enough for me to say it's not a rare antiquity just yet. If they expand on this movie and do a sequel and explore it more, then I could probably go down and say it's a rare antiquity, but right now, no. But it is a high recommend. I did enjoy it, and I can't wait to see it again.
Man, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, least of all you, but fuck this movie, man. I'm so angry. Like we already said, I wanted to get it out of the way at the top. Like, Joaquin Phoenix is fucking terrific, and he needs to be nominated for sure. And again, without having seen it, a lot of movies this year, he could win an Oscar for this, and I'd be thrilled for him. But Todd Phillips, man, he can... fuck. The movie looks great. Like, they shot the shit out of it. It looks fucking awesome. I loved how it looked. I loved how they shot it. But I just can't do it. I can't get... What the fuck, man? Why does this movie exist? Why? I don't understand. I don't get the why. I'll tell you what. I'll give it this. I can't figure it out. Ever since I saw it, I've been turning it over in my mind, and I've been talking about it with people. And you've got to give any piece of art credit when you're talking about it all the fucking time and you're thinking about it all the time. And that's me. This movie pisses me off, man. It pisses me off because I don't know what's going on. And I don't think it's because it's good and asks great questions. I think it's because he deliberately avoids the answers to the questions to make me angry. Like he's raising questions and he's deliberately skating around the answers because he wants ambiguity. And maybe it's a fourth wall thing. It's because that's the Joker will want. That's not what it's a fictional character. Like, fuck off with that shit. Like, give me some answers, man. Like, have some balls and present a message. Give me something. And I just don't have anything here. So I'll watch it and I see this great performance and it looks great and it's very affecting emotionally. And then the narrative is just up your ass. Like, I don't know what else to say. I'm so confused by this film and why it exists and why they decided to make it like this. And if they make a sequel that could give it some more context, if he faces off against Batman, or if it doesn't need to be Batman, he's something else that's further to this, then perhaps that would give this the context that I needed to have in order to like it. So do I recommend it? Well, if you like great performances and you dig Joaquin Phoenix, yeah, fucking watch this movie, man. Just some great acting in this movie. Fuck off with this movie. Damn. This is so angry right now.
I love it.
Shit. So I don't have anything else for you. Rare Antiquity? Fuck, I have no clue. Maybe. Ask me in 20 years.
You gotta stay in it now, man, for the record.
Yeah, well, 20 years. We'll do a retrospective in 20 years.
You have to come out of the grave.
Speak for yourself. I plan to live forever. I was looking at a picture of Riker, so that's why I said that anyway. So...
You know what? That's okay, man. I think that's fantastic. No, I'll be honest with you. Art is subjective. Yeah. And you either latch on to that, and I latched on and you didn't. And I think that's fascinating. And I think if Rian Johnson made this movie, he would call that a success. So, because 50% of the audience would love it and 50% would hate it.
As Joker eats one of those porgs roasted over an open fire there. Actually, one thing I wanted to bring up before I didn't, and this is just my final thought. I loved their decision on the naming of this character. Arthur Fleck? Perfect. Great name.
But wasn't that also one of the potential names of the Joker in some comic book? Wasn't it Arthur Fleck?
I don't think so.
Okay. Sounded familiar, but I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe you're right, and I'll look it up after this, but I don't think so. But it felt like such a perfect name. Yeah.
Great name.
Great name. Okay, shit. Man, this is a long episode, and I loved every minute of it. But it is that time to figure out what our next adventure is going to be. So I wait with bated breath, as I always do, when your next choice is on deck. So what do you got for us next time?
Well, sir, we are approaching Halloween once again. So I thought I would pick something appropriate for the season. So next time we shall view the South Korean film Train to Busan. And I'll leave it at that if you haven't heard of it. I have already seen it one time, and I can't wait to watch it again and hear your thoughts.
I'll tell you this. You can eat my ass because that was going to be my Halloween pick. I kid you not.
You serious?
Yeah, I'm 100% serious. I've been looking at that on my Netflix queue. I've heard about it, and I'm like, that's going to be my Halloween season pick. So, awesome.
Motherfucker.
As soon as you said the South Korean, I'm like, he's going to pick Train to Busan. That fucking A.
So you haven't seen it?
I have not seen it yet. I've been saving it for the show.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I watched it when it was first released on Netflix a long time ago.
Yeah.
So can't wait to see it again. Get your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. Well, this was fun, and I can't wait till the next one.
Yeah, it was a scene, man.
Oh, yeah. It was a scene.
All right. Well, look forward to next time.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.